How Jules Verne imagined submarines. Submarines imagine looking at the wild, open sea and dreaming of what lay far below. Most people back in the 1800s just saw a surface, maybe a ship sailing on it. But one writer, Jules Verne, saw something else entirely. He pictured incredible machines, sleek and strong, moving silently through the deep. These were submarines, long before real ones were common. Think about that. It was a time when the deepest parts of the ocean were unknown, full of myths and maybe a little fear. People barely knew how to explore them. But Verne wasn't scared. He let his mind travel to places no human had been, sketching out these amazing underwater ships in his books. He wasn't just writing an adventure, he was seeing a future where humans could live and explore in the ocean's silent embrace. It's kind of like when you sketch out a design for a new kind of robot, or a crazy useful app that nobody has made yet. You have this clear picture in your head, even if the tools to build it aren't around. Verne did that, but on a huge world-changing scale. His stories, especially 20,000 Leagues Under the Seas, weren't just fun reads. They planted seeds in the minds of inventors, scientists, and dreamers. They showed what could be possible if we dared to build our visions. Sometimes, the most powerful predictions aren't facts, but dreams written down, urging us to reach for the impossible. And that's how a writer's imagination can quietly, profoundly, change the world. When a writer saw World War I coming, have you ever had that strange feeling, like a big change is coming, even if you can't quite put your finger on it? Like the air feels different just before a thunderstorm, or you can sense tension building between friends. Sometimes, truly observant people, especially writers, can feel these shifts in the world around them, almost like seeing shadows of the future. It's not magic, but a deep way of understanding human patterns in history. One such person was a writer named H.G. Wells. He lived in the early 1900s, a time when many people genuinely believed the world was becoming more peaceful and modern. There was a sense of progress, of new inventions making life better. But Wells, with his sharp mind and a sensitive heart, looked past the glittering surface. He saw the growing pride in different nations, the fierce rivalries bubbling up, the terrifying new weapons being secretly developed, and the quiet, restless anger simmering beneath the surface of Europe. He didn't have a crystal ball. Instead, he paid incredibly close attention to human nature, how people and nations tend to act when they feel powerful, or when they feel threatened, or when they just can't agree. Here's the thing. It's like watching a group of classmates on the edge of a big disagreement. Maybe everyone is laughing, but you notice certain tight smiles, or how some people keep avoiding eye contact. You feel that something important is off, that a major conflict could erupt at any moment. Wells was doing this, but on a massive scale, observing entire continents. He wrote stories and essays where he imagined the war that will end war, describing terrible new technologies and widespread destruction. Years before World War I actually began in 1914, he painted vivid, unsettling pictures of a future many thought impossible, a future of mechanized horror. His predictions weren't magic tricks. They came from a deep, almost painful understanding of where things were headed. He saw the thin threads of fear, ambition, and stubbornness weaving together, forming a terrifying pattern. And that's why it matters. It shows us the quiet, profound power of observation, but also the deep, heavy sadness of seeing a tragedy approach with such clarity, yet being unable to stop it. It's a powerful reminder to listen to those who look closely, and to understand that even when the surface of life seems calm, we should always be aware of the strong, unseen currents pulling beneath. The first dreams of people flying. Have you ever looked up at the vast, open sky and felt a deep, quiet yearning? That feeling, like a whisper inside, that wishes you could just spread your arms and soar. For thousands of years, people across the world felt that exact same pull. It wasn't just a simple wish. It was a powerful dream, deeply etched into the human heart, to escape the ground and touch the clouds. Think about it. Before aeroplanes, before even hot air balloons, humans were completely bound to the ground. They'd look up at the endless sky, full of birds effortlessly gliding. Ancient people saw eagles soar, geese fly in perfect V formations, and they felt a powerful mix of wonder and a little bit of envy. They imagined winged gods, like the Greek god Hermes, or mythical creatures like dragons that ruled the air. This wasn't just simple storytelling, it was a deep belief, a powerful prediction, that one day, humans would conquer the skies too. It showed an early, deep sense of what was truly possible. Even if they didn't know how it would happen, It's a bit like when you play a video game and imagine what it would be like to jump that high, or run that fast. Or when you're studying for a big test and can almost feel yourself knowing all the answers. That intense imagining is where dreams begin to take shape. For our ancestors, this shared, impossible dream of flight became a powerful force. A seed planted in the human mind, passed down through generations. Here's the thing about these ancient yearnings. They aren't just silly fantasies, they are profound predictions. They show how a shared human hope, even if it seems impossible, can become a guiding star. This deep longing, this collective dream, pushed people to invent, to experiment, and to finally, truly, lift off the ground. It tells us something important. What we dream about together, for a long, long time, often eventually becomes real. Ancient ideas about going to space. Have you ever just stood outside, maybe on a really clear night, and let your eyes drift up to the stars? That feeling, that sense of wonder, it's pretty powerful, right? It makes you feel small, yet connected to something huge. That quiet awe, that deep curiosity, it's not new. It's an ancient feeling, shared for thousands of years. Long before rockets or even aeroplanes, ancient thinkers looked at the moon and planets and dreamed of reaching them. They didn't have science as we know it today, but they had incredible stories, rich myths, and deep philosophical thoughts. Some believed mighty gods lived in the sky, riding shining chariots across the heavens. Others imagined great birds, or even magical machines, that could lift humans beyond the clouds. It took incredible bravery to even imagine leaving the ground, because the sky was often seen as the realm of gods or spirits, a place humans didn't belong, but still, they dreamt. Think about the ancient Greeks. Philosophers like Aristotle tried to explain the universe, even if their ideas seem simple to us now. They saw the stars as fixed points on crystal spheres, always moving in perfect, endless circles. It was a grand, ordered vision, even if it wasn't quite right. It's kind of like how you might feel when you're watching an amazing video game, and you really, really want to be inside that world, exploring new planets or solving epic quests. You know it's not real in the same way your school desk is, but the desire to go there, to experience it, is super strong. That deep wish to cross a boundary, that's the feeling. These ancient thinkers, they didn't predict spaceships exactly, or astronauts in suits, but they absolutely predicted the spirit of wanting to go there. They understood that deep longing, that human need to explore what's beyond our reach, to push past limits. Their guesses weren't about rocket fuel or math, but about the boundless imagination we all carry inside us. And that's the thing. Even back then, people knew there was more to the universe than what they could see from their homes. They didn't know how we'd get there, but they knew, in their hearts, that someday, somehow, we just had to try. That timeless wonder, that human drive to look up and keep dreaming, that's what connected them to us. Right now, as we look up at that same incredible sky. What Leonardo da Vinci thought about airplanes. Have you ever gazed up at the sky, watching a plane streak across the blue, and wondered how humans ever learned to fly? Imagine a time, centuries ago, when flight was just a dream, a secret held only by birds and insects. But one person, Leonardo da Vinci, looked up with a mind full of wonder and began to imagine a world where humans could soar. He didn't just wish for it, he studied it. Leonardo watched birds with an incredible focus. He observed how their wings moved, how their bodies caught the air, and how they seemed to dance on the wind. He believed that if he could understand the natural world, he could copy its magic. Here's the thing. He filled his private notebooks with thousands of sketches, intricate drawings of flapping wings, flying machines, and designs that looked like giant bats or birds. He was dreaming of human flight long before anyone else truly conceived it. His ideas were, for his time, completely out of reach. There were no engines, no light metals, none of the technologies we have today. Yet, he pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible, just by observing and drawing. Think about it like this. When you see something amazing, maybe a gymnast performing a difficult move, you might try to figure out how they do it. You break it down in your mind, step by step. Leonardo did that with flight, trying to understand nature's biggest secret, and that's why it matters. His incredible curiosity and his belief that anything could be understood through careful observation led him to predict a future that wouldn't arrive for hundreds of years. He saw in the flapping of a bird's wing the potential for a human to fly. It's a quiet reminder that our deepest dreams, the ones that seem impossible, often begin with a single person's wonder, slowly growing into the world we know today. A Roman who guessed future leaders. Have you ever looked at someone, maybe a friend or a classmate, and just known they were going to do something big one day, not because they told you, but because of how they carried themselves, how they spoke, or the fire in their eyes? Imagine living in ancient Rome, a world of grand speeches, hidden plots, and powerful families, where the future of an empire rested on who would lead next. There was a Roman, a truly thoughtful person, who had a remarkable way of seeing tomorrow in the faces of young men today. This wasn't magic or a crystal ball. It was a deep, quiet understanding of human nature. This person, perhaps a wise senator or a revered teacher, spent years simply watching. They observed young men in the forum, in the Senate, or training for battle. They looked at how they handled a defeat, how they celebrated a win, how they treated those weaker than themselves. They could spot the ones with a true hunger for leadership, not just power, but the heavy responsibility that came with guiding an entire civilization. It's a bit like when a seasoned coach watches a group of kids playing soccer for the first time. The coach sees more than just kicks and runs. They see the one who organizes the others, the one who never gives up, the one who learns quickly from mistakes. They can predict who will be the captain years down the line, because they see the seeds of leadership already sprouting. This Roman understood that certain qualities, a sharp mind, unwavering courage, the ability to inspire trust, or even a subtle, deep ambition were like fingerprints of a future leader. They saw that these traits, even in their rawest form, hinted at the path someone was destined to walk. It reminds us that people are like unfolding stories. Our choices, our actions, even the way we listen, all reveal small glimpses of the person we are becoming. Maybe, if we look carefully, with a curious heart, we can all learn to see a little bit of tomorrow in the people we meet today. The guy who predicted the internet in the 1940 shave, you ever stopped to truly feel the magic of the internet? How it holds so much human thought, connecting us all across time and distance. It feels like something that just arrived, doesn't it? But here's the thing. Someone actually imagined something incredibly similar, way back in the 1940s. Try to picture that time, a world before home computers, even before personal phones. This was a place still healing from a massive war, where high-tech meant giant machines, not something you'd hold gently in your hand. His name was Vannevar Bush. He wasn't just an engineer, he was a dreamer who led science efforts. He wrote about a device he called the Memex. This wasn't merely a complex calculator. He pictured a machine where a person could store all their books, letters, and notes. But the truly amazing part was how it would let you link these things together, creating trails of thought. Imagine reading about the stars, and then, with a simple touch, instantly jumping to a specific part of a book about physics, connecting ideas like never before. He dreamed of a personal library that could weave knowledge in ways no physical collection ever could. Think about how you use a search engine or an online encyclopedia today. You type a question, and suddenly, millions of answers appear, all linked and cross-referenced. You jump from one topic to another, pulled by your own curiosity. That quiet joy of easily finding what you need, of seeing ideas connect, is what Bush saw so long ago. He understood that humans don't just want isolated facts. We yearn to connect them, to build intricate tapestries of understanding. His vision wasn't only about metal and wires. It was about us, about how our minds work. We constantly try to connect ideas, to make sense of the world by linking one thought to another, one memory to another. The Memex was his profound way of making that inner process, that deep human desire to connect, to understand, to share a reality beyond our own thoughts. It reminds us that sometimes, the most profound changes begin as a soft whisper, a quiet, thoughtful dream, long before anyone else even dares to see the possibility. These deep visions, stretching across generations, truly shape the world we live in. A sci-fi author who invented the smartphone idea. Have you ever stopped to think about where our most amazing inventions truly begin? Not in a lab or on a factory floor, but deep inside someone's mind. A simple thought waiting to grow. Long before touchscreens and apps, a brilliant science fiction writer named Arthur C. Clarke imagined something incredible. Back in 1964, he described a small, personal device that could connect us to anyone, anywhere on Earth. He called it a personal transceiver, or pocket communicator. He pictured people using it to check news, send messages, and do all sorts of things we now do every day on our phones. He even said everyone would carry one. Think about that. This was when phones were big boxes with rotary dials, stuck to a wall. Computers were massive machines filling entire rooms. The internet, as we know it, didn't exist. Yet, Clark wasn't just guessing. He was deeply thinking about how technology could shrink and become personal. He saw a future where connection would be right in our hands, an extension of ourselves. It's like someone in ancient times, looking at a dark forest and dreaming of a cozy cabin with a warm fire. Long before anyone knew how to build such a thing, they didn't have the tools, but they had the vision. Our phones today, with all their magic, began as just a spark in someone's imagination. That spark grew into something real. It tells us something important about human creativity. Our ideas, even the wildest ones, can slowly become real. Sometimes, the future isn't just something we wait for, it's something we build, one dream at a time. And sometimes, those dreams start with a story, whispered from a book, waiting to become our tomorrow. When books showed us video calls, have you ever stopped to think about how amazing it is that you can see your friend's face while talking to them, even if they're miles away? We just call it a video call or FaceTime, and it's totally normal for us. But here's the thing. For a very long time, this was just a wild, impossible idea. It was a wish, a deep yearning, whispered on the pages of old books, long before any real technology existed to make it happen. Imagine authors, many years ago, sitting down and dreaming of a world where distance couldn't truly separate people. They wrote stories about telephones that showed pictures or visual phones in a time when even a regular phone call was a new, wondrous invention. Their characters would chat with family across oceans, share a laugh with someone in another city, all while looking into a screen. It wasn't science fiction just for fun. It was the human heart's deep desire to stay connected, to bridge the miles that kept loved ones apart. This isn't so different from how you might feel when you're missing a grandparent who lives far away. You wish you could just magically see them, right? Those writers felt that same pull, that same human need. They put that feeling into words, making it real in their imaginations first. They showed us that the limits we see today aren't always the limits of tomorrow. So when you next use a video call, take a moment, think about those old books, those quiet pages where the seeds of your everyday technology were first planted. It reminds us that our dreams and stories aren't just entertainment. They are powerful tools, shaping the world we eventually build. Every time we connect visually across distances, it's like a quiet echo from those early dreamers, showing us that what we imagine can, one day, truly come true. It's a beautiful thought, really. Who first talked about driverless cars? Have you ever wondered about cars that drive themselves? Not just in movies, but in real life, moving along our streets right now. It feels like a very new, futuristic idea, doesn't it? Like something from tomorrow. But here's the thing. People were dreaming about vehicles that didn't need a driver a very, very long time ago. Imagine a world where machines could move on their own. It's a thought that has fascinated us for centuries. One of the earliest known times someone truly explored this idea wasn't even about cars as we know them. It was in the mind of the brilliant artist and inventor, Leonardo da Vinci. Back in the late 1400s, he sketched plans for what some call a self-propelled cart. It was a wooden machine designed to move by itself, using springs and gears, sort of like a wind-up toy, but much bigger and more complex. His vision wasn't for passengers, but for parades, a marvel of engineering for its time. Later, in the early 20th century, as cars became more common, the idea started shifting. Writers began imagining actual driverless vehicles carrying people. Picture this: you tell a car where to go, and it just goes. No hands on the wheel, no feet on the pedals. It's a bit like when you give instructions to a smart speaker at home, and it plays your favorite song or tells you the weather. You don't have to touch anything. Your voice is enough. Or consider an elevator. You press a button, and it knows exactly what to do and where to take you, all by itself. It's not magic, it's programmed intelligence. This dream, spanning centuries from Da Vinci's sketches to science fiction stories, reminds us of something truly profound. Our deepest wishes and wildest imaginations often pave the way for what actually becomes real. The longing for an easier, smarter way to move around, born in the minds of dreamers, slowly, carefully, began to take shape. It teaches us that the future is often just a reflection of our past hopes, brought to life through courage and curiosity. We build tomorrow by first daring to imagine it. Early thoughts on robots doing chores. Have you ever looked at a mountain of laundry or a sink full of dirty dishes and just wished they'd vanish? Wished a magic hand could simply take care of it? For centuries, people have felt that deep longing. The idea of machines doing our everyday tasks, our chores, isn't new. It's a dream as old as our human desire for an easier life. Don't think about ancient Greek stories. They had myths about bronze giants guarding islands, or mechanical birds that could sing. These weren't actual robots like the ones we imagine today, but they showed a clear human wish to create things that could act, work, and serve without tiring. Philosophers back then started to wonder, if a machine could handle all the hard, boring work, what would that mean for us? Would we finally be free to explore ideas, create art, or simply enjoy life? Or would we lose a part of what makes us human? The satisfaction of overcoming small daily challenges. It's a bit like learning to ride a bike. At first, it's wobbly and hard. You might wish the bike could just balance itself and pedal for you. But then, after falling a few times, you get it. That feeling of accomplishment, of mastering something, is powerful. That's the heart of the question about robots and chores. If we never had to do the mundane, the routine, would we miss out on small moments of effort and the quiet pride that comes with them? The early thinkers weren't just predicting technology. They were exploring the very soul of human purpose. They asked, what is our place in a world where machines do the scrubbing, the lifting, the tidying? What kind of future were we building, not just with metal and gears, but within ourselves? It makes you think about the quiet dignity in doing something with your own hands, even something small, doesn't it? A soft, important question to carry. Why people expected electric cars long ago? Have you ever stopped to think about what people a long time ago wished for? Not just for magic, but for things that could actually make their lives better. It's a gentle thought, really. Back when cars were brand new, most ran on gasoline, and they were loud, smelly, and kind of a pain. But even then, people imagined something different. They had a dream of electric cars, long before they became a common sight. Imagine walking through a busy city street over 100 years ago. The air was full of the smell of horse manure, and the constant clip-clop of hooves mixed with the noisy, sputtering engines of early gasoline cars. These first cars were clunky, they rattled, and they often broke down. So, the idea of a quiet, clean, smooth ride, powered by electricity, felt like a breath of fresh air. People weren't just guessing. They saw electricity as a magical new power that could change everything. It's like how we might wish for a quiet, clean way to get to school, instead of a bumpy bus or a noisy car ride. You see the problem, the noise, the fumes, and your mind starts to picture a peaceful solution. For people long ago, electric cars were that peaceful vision. They weren't just thinking about speed, but about a more gentle way to move through the world, without all the mess and commotion. So here's the thing. Their hope wasn't just for a new machine. It was for a calmer, healthier life, a future that felt less harsh. It shows us that deep down, humans have always yearned for ease and quiet. That soft dream of a smoother journey, a clearer sky, has always been part of us, connecting our past hopes to our present reality. How one thinker saw our world shrink. Have you ever paused and really thought about how quickly news travels now? Like, really, truly felt how close everything seems. One day, something amazing or tragic happens halfway across the planet. The next, it's all over your phone, on TV, and everyone at school is talking about it. It's almost like the world has gotten smaller, isn't it? Well, that feeling was actually predicted by a brilliant thinker named Marshall McLuhan way back in the 1960s. He looked at new technologies like television and saw more than just screens. He saw them changing how we connect, how we learn, and how we understand our place in the world. He talked about a global village, meaning that even though we are scattered across continents, these new ways of communicating would make us feel like we all live in the same small town. Think about it this way. Remember when your favorite band dropped a new song, or a really cool dance challenge went viral on TikTok? One person posts it, and moments later, friends in different cities, even different countries, are watching, reacting, and joining in. The distance doesn't matter much anymore. That's the global village in action. It's like our voices and faces can instantly jump across oceans, bridging gaps that used to take days, weeks, or even months to cross. It's a powerful idea, isn't it? That a single thought, shared through a wire or a signal in the air, could connect billions of people. This shrinking world means we see each other's joys and struggles more clearly. It invites us to feel more for others, to understand that what happens far away can still touch our hearts right here. It calls on us to be more aware, more connected, and maybe, just maybe, a little more kind to our global neighbors. The old prophecy about London's big fire. Have you ever had a strange feeling, like you just knew something was going to happen? Maybe you felt a storm coming, even before the sky darkened. It's a bit like that with prophecies, old predictions that sometimes, amazingly, seem to come true. For hundreds of years, people looked to writers like Nostradamus, a French doctor who claimed he could see the future. He wrote hundreds of prophecies, often vague, like riddles. It was hard to tell what he meant until after an event. Then, people looked back and said, he predicted this. Here's an example. One writing spoke of the city of London, consumed by fire. Imagine reading that centuries ago, and then, in 1666, the Great Fire of London ripped through the city. The fire was enormous, terrifying. It started in a baker's shop and spread fast, burning for days. Homes, churches, whole neighborhoods turned to ash. Imagine watching your world burn, feeling the heat and smoke for what seemed like forever. In all that fear, some remembered the old words, the city of London, consumed by fire. Was it a coincidence, or did those old words truly see this sorrowful future? It's like building a tall tower of blocks. You might feel one block is wobbly, sensing the whole thing might crash. Then, suddenly, it does. You didn't cause it, but you sensed it. That's how some felt about the prophecy. It didn't start the fire, but it somehow mirrored the terrible truth. It makes you wonder about connections between old words in our lives. Maybe it's how we search for meaning, trying to understand history's big events, and how sometimes those old echoes feel meant to be heard. When someone predicted cities would grow tall, have you ever stood on a busy street, looked straight up at a towering building, and felt tiny? Felt like the world was stretching endlessly towards the sky. For us, skyscrapers are just part of the everyday view. But imagine a time, not so long ago, when cities spread out, low and wide, with just a few church spires or factory chimneys daring to climb higher. Then, picture someone, a visionary soul from that time, quietly dreaming, one day, our towns will not just spread, they will reach for the clouds, layer upon layer of human life. This idea wasn't just a fantasy. It was a profound glimpse into a future they couldn't possibly fully see. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, as cities grew faster than ever, a few sharp minds began to understand a simple truth. Land was limited. If more and more people wanted to live in one place, they couldn't just keep building outwards forever. So, where would they go? Up? Thinkers, writers, and even engineers started sketching visions of massive, vertical cities. This wasn't just predicting taller structures, it was seeing the very heartbeat of urban growth and knowing it would pulse upwards. Here's the thing, it's a bit like a tree. A young sapling spreads its branches wide, soaking up light. But as it gets older, and other trees crowd around, it has to grow taller to find the sunlight it needs. Cities are similar. As populations crowded in, the only direction left was upwards, into the sky. This foresight, this quiet whisper from the past, showed a deep connection to human needs, to the simple logic of space, and to our incredible power to imagine. They saw the bustling energy of humanity and understood it would need new horizons, even if those horizons were vertical. When we look up at a modern skyscraper today, remember that someone once looked at a much smaller world and saw exactly this. It's more than just steel and glass. It's a monument to a dream, a silent testament to the human spirit's ability to build what was once only imagined. It makes you pause, doesn't it? To think about the dreams we hold now, and how they might one day stand tall, a living part of the future. It reminds us that sometimes, the biggest predictions come from the simplest observations and the deepest sense of hope. The writer who dreamed up TV before it was real. Have you ever stopped to think about how truly incredible some everyday things are? Like your phone, or the big screen in your living room. They feel normal to us. But imagine a time, over 100 years ago, when none of this existed. No internet, no radios, not even electricity in most homes. People communicated by letters, sometimes taking weeks, or by telegraphs. Yet, during this quiet, slower time, a writer sat down and put words on paper, describing something so wild, so far-fetched, it must have seemed like pure magic. Television. This wasn't just a guess. This was a clear picture of people seeing live events and plays from miles away, right in their own homes, through a screen. Think about that for a moment. The world they lived in had steam trains and horse-drawn carriages. Their biggest entertainment might have been a live stage show or reading a book. And here was someone painting a future where moving images and voices traveled through the air, appearing inside a simple box. It's almost like if you, today, described a device that could instantly transport you to another planet, or let you talk to animals and understand their thoughts. It sounds impossible, right? But this writer saw it. It speaks to a profound part of who we are. Before inventors even began to build the first working models, someone had to see it. Someone had to believe in a world that wasn't there yet. Holding on to that image, it reminds us that every invention, every big change in how we live, first lives in the human mind. In the quiet corners of imagination, these dreams, these seemingly impossible visions, are like tiny seeds. They might take years, even generations, to grow, but they eventually push through the soil of today and bloom into the reality of tomorrow. It's a gentle reminder that your own wildest dreams today might just be the blueprints for a world we haven't even begun to imagine. Seeing the future of moon landings earlier, if you ever imagined something so clearly in your mind that it almost felt real, a dream so vivid, a future so possible, you could almost touch it. Sometimes, long before technology caught up, people had these powerful visions, predicting things that seemed utterly impossible. And then, decades later, those visions became astounding realities. Think about our journey to the moon. For centuries, humans gazed up at that glowing orb in the night sky and wondered, could we ever go there? Long before rockets were even a flicker, writers began to see it. Jules Verne, a French novelist, wrote a book called From the Earth to the Moon way back in 1865. Here's what I found. He described a massive cannon that would launch a capsule toward the moon. He even suggested a launch site in Florida, a place very close to where NASA would actually launch rockets over 100 years later. He wrote about the feeling of weightlessness, the view of Earth from space. It wasn't just a wild story. It was a blueprint, a deep anticipation of what humanity could achieve. It's like when you're designing something on paper for a school project. You draw out every detail, how it will look, how it will work, long before you even gather your materials. That drawing isn't just a picture, it's a quiet promise, a first step towards making your idea real. Verne's book was like that drawing for space travel. It showed the world what was possible, not just in science, but in the human heart. So this isn't about magic or crystal balls. It's about something deeper, the incredible power of human imagination mixed with a smart understanding of science. It's about how our deepest hopes, when painted with enough detail and belief, can actually pull the future into existence. It makes you wonder what impossible dreams we hold today that might one day, quietly and beautifully, come true. The idea of credit cards in the 1800s shave. You ever stop to think about how we pay for things today? We just swipe a card, or tap a phone, and poof, the item is ours. It feels so normal, so utterly modern. But what if I told you the very idea of a credit card was dreamed up long ago, in a world without cars, or even widespread electricity, by someone looking far into the future with hopeful wonder? Imagine a quiet evening in 1888. A writer named Edward Bellamy sat dreaming up a different world for his book. Looking backward, in his story, the main character wakes up in the year 2000 and finds a society unlike anything he knew. Gone were cash and coins. Instead, everyone had something called a credit card. This wasn't a shiny plastic rectangle like we know. It was more like an allocation, a claim to your share of the nation's goods and services. It was a bold vision built on collective trust and shared resources, where everyone had what they needed, not based on personal wealth, but on being part of the community. It asked a deep question. What if our value wasn't just what we earned, but what we were promised as members of a society? Think of it like this. Imagine your school had a system where, instead of bringing cash for lunch, you just showed your student ID. The school knows you belong, and your lunch is covered from a larger fund, budgeted for everyone. You're not paying with your own money right then. You're using a credit based on your place in the community. That's a bit how Bellamy's dream felt, a deep trust in a future where everyone was cared for. It shows us something truly profound. Even when technology was simple, people's minds soared. They imagined new ways for humans to connect, to exchange value, to live together. They saw that money, in its basic form, is truly just a symbol of trust and agreement. And even then, they began to wonder if that trust could be handled differently, more smoothly, perhaps even more fairly. These quiet, hopeful thoughts from a century and a half ago still echo in the almost silent tap of our cards today. They remind us that our modern world often springs from old hopes and the powerful, quiet dreams of people who dared to imagine a different way. How a poet imagined women voting. Have you ever pictured something so unbelievable for its time that most people would just laugh? Poet Robert Browning did this almost 2 centuries ago, imagining women voting. Back then, women voting was unheard of. Society believed women belonged in the home, not in government. Suggesting women vote felt like turning the world upside down. It was a radical, unthinkable concept. But Browning, through his art, saw beyond his day's strict rules. He wrote a poem where women stood in lines, like men, making choices. He imagined their quiet determination, their serious faces participating in something important. He showed it happening, as if it were natural, though far from reality. This was a gentle whisper of a different future. Think about this. Imagine telling someone 50 years ago that everyone would carry a tiny supercomputer. They'd think you were crazy. That's how far-fetched Browning's ideas seemed. You see a glimmer of what could be, even if it feels out of reach now. This poet didn't just write words. He painted a picture of dignity and equality long before the world was ready. He held on to a deep hope that all voices mattered. It shows us imagination's quiet, powerful strength, how it can gently nudge the future. It plants seeds of change in our minds, even when the path ahead seems long and dark. His vision reminds us that what feels impossible today might just be tomorrow's simple truth. When someone guessed we'd worked fewer hours, have you ever looked at a long list of chores or a big school project and wished you had a magic wand to make it all disappear, leaving you with more time for fun? Imagine if grown-ups felt that way about their jobs, but a smart person actually thought it would happen. A long time ago, in 1930, a very famous thinker named John Maynard Keynes made a bold prediction. He believed that by our time, the year 2030, most people would only need to work about 15 hours a week. Think about that for a second. 15 hours, that's less than 3 full school days. He saw new machines, new ways of doing things, and thought they would make us so efficient. Machines would handle so much of the boring, tough work. So, he figured, we'd have all this extra time. Time to read, to create art, to learn new things just for fun, or simply to just be. It sounds like a dream, doesn't it? A promise of a life filled with freedom, where work wasn't the center of everything. Here's an example to help picture it. Think about your kitchen, and how a dishwasher cleans plates much faster and easier than washing them all by hand. When dishwashers became common, people got back a lot of time. You'd think that saved time would mean less work overall, right? But sometimes, we just find new ways to fill that time. Maybe we cook more elaborate meals, or entertain more often, creating new tasks that take up the saved time. The work just shifts, or new desires pop up. So, why aren't we all working just 15 hours a week? It's not that the machines didn't get better, they totally did. But here's the thing, people wanted more. More stuff, bigger houses, cooler gadgets, amazing trips. And to get those things, we needed more money. So, we kept working. The time we saved with new technology often got filled with new wants, new goals. It makes you quietly wonder, what do we truly value most? Endless things, or precious, free time? It's a thought that stays with you, about the choices we make, and the life we build. The genius who drew flying machines. Have you ever looked up at the sky and wished you could fly, really fly, like a bird? For thousands of years, humans dreamed of taking to the air. But one man, over 500 years ago, didn't just dream, he drew it. His name was Leonardo da Vinci. In a world where horses were the fastest way to travel, he filled notebooks with detailed designs for flying machines. Imagine his world, the Renaissance. People were just beginning to understand science and art, yet building something to lift a person off the ground seemed utterly impossible. But Leonardo saw differently. He drew contraptions that looked uncannily like modern-day helicopters, parachutes, and gliders. He studied birds, understood wind, and observed how bodies move through air. He saw things no one else could, with an artist's eye and a scientist's logic. He didn't guess. He observed, sketched, and figured out the basic physics of flight. It's a bit like if you were to draw a working teleportation device today, complete with diagrams, even if it feels impossible right now. And then, hundreds of years later, someone actually builds one, based on your ideas. That's how far ahead Leonardo was. He trusted his imagination and observations so deeply, he put pencil to paper, showing how what seemed impossible could one day be real. His drawings were more than just sketches. They were whispers from the future. They remind us that sometimes, the most impossible dreams can be blueprints for tomorrow. What seems like a wild idea today, with curiosity and careful thought, might just be a prediction waiting to come true. It's a powerful lesson about believing in the future, even when it's beyond what we see right now. True genius means seeing what others cannot, and having the courage to sketch that unseen future into existence. How a book showed us Google Earth kind of. Have you ever looked at a globe, spinning it around, and wished you could just zoom right in? Like, really see the rooftops of faraway cities, or the winding paths of rivers. For most of history, that was just a dream, a cool thought we couldn't really touch. But here's the thing, sometimes, big ideas show up in old books, long before the technology even exists. Back in 1937, a writer named H.G. Wells shared a big idea. He called it a world brain. He pictured a giant, universal encyclopedia. All human knowledge, every map, fact, and picture, would be collected and linked. This wasn't just a fancy library. It was a deep longing to connect, to understand the whole world as one big, interconnected puzzle. He imagined having a global map of information at your fingertips, not just a physical place. Think how you use your phone now. You find a new restaurant, or look up a picture of the Great Wall. You tap, and suddenly, you're almost there. You can scroll, see streets, mountains, oceans. Wells imagined that feeling for all knowledge. It's like someone long ago, deep in thought, felt the future pulling. They sensed our hunger to instantly know and see. That quiet power of human thought, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? This old idea, this quiet whisper from the past, reminds us of something beautiful. It tells us that our biggest dreams, the ones that seem impossible, aren't always just dreams. Sometimes, they are blueprints. They are maps for future generations, showing us where to go, even when we can't yet see the road. It shows how imagination can literally shape the world, long before we even know how. And that's why it matters. The scary prediction about germs and cures. Have you ever thought how scary sickness used to be? For most of history, illness was a mystery. People often died, no one knowing why. They blamed bad air or curses. Imagine a simple cut leading to limb loss, or a cough meaning death. It was terrifying. Then, we understood. We found tiny, invisible enemies, germs. With that came a miracle, medicines to fight them. Antibiotics changed everything, protecting us from infections that once killed millions. Humanity felt great fears were conquered. But here's the thing, as we celebrated cures, smart people made a scary prediction. They warned our victory might not last. They said if we used medicines too often, germs would learn to resist. These invaders would adapt and grow stronger. It was like predicting a magic shield would stop working. Think about your favorite video game. You find a secret power-up, making you super strong, defeating all bad guys' eyes. But if you keep using it over and over, the game's creators might make the bad guys tougher. They adapt. Suddenly, your power-up isn't so special. You're back to struggling. That's what's happening with germs and our medicines. We used our cures, sometimes when not needed, or without finishing treatment. And the germs, these unseen fighters, began to change. They found ways around our powerful drugs. They became superbugs. It's a quiet, ongoing battle with high stakes. It's a heavy thought, isn't it? That things designed to save us could become useless. This reminds us, victory demands respect and careful thought. Our world is delicate, our health even more so. We carry a responsibility to be wise, protecting medicine for everyone, forever. When someone sketched the first helicopter, have you ever doodled an idea in your notebook? Something wild and impossible, but you just had to get it down. Imagine someone doing that 500 years ago, not for a simple gadget, but for something that defied gravity itself. Centuries before planes roared overhead, before helicopters spun their way into the sky, there was a quiet genius named Leonardo da Vinci. He didn't just dream of flying, he drew it, pouring his heart onto the page. Picture his hands, in a time without electricity or advanced engines, carefully sketching what he called an aerial screw. It looked like a giant corkscrew, meant to spin incredibly fast and pull itself into the air. He filled pages with these drawings, detailed designs for a machine that could lift off the ground, not by flapping wings like a bird, but by mechanical force. It was a prediction born purely from his deep imagination and a quiet, persistent belief in what was possible at the time. Building such a thing was truly impossible. The materials weren't strong enough. The powerful engines needed simply didn't exist. People around him might have thought it was pure fantasy, a beautiful but unreachable dream. But here's the thing. That initial sketch, that wild, hopeful idea, was the very first step. It was like drawing a blueprint for a future that hadn't happened yet. Think about it like this. When you sketch out a design for an amazing treehouse, even if you don't have all the wood and tools right now, that first drawing holds the entire adventure within it. That simple drawing is where the possibility truly begins. It reminds us how powerful a single, quiet thought can be, a moment of profound imagination captured on paper. Da Vinci's aerial screw was a silent promise to the future, a whisper across centuries that humanity would one day truly escape the ground. It shows us that sometimes the greatest predictions aren't spoken words, but lines on a page filled with a deep, unspoken hope. They are the echoes of what we believe we can achieve, waiting patiently for the world to slowly catch up. And that's why this quiet act of drawing truly matters. The unsinkable ship that proved them wrong. Have you ever been so sure about something, like a perfect plan or how a game would end? You just knew, right? Well, imagine that certainty on a massive scale. Over 100 years ago, people built the Titanic. They didn't just think it was strong, they declared it unsinkable, truly unsinkable. It's easy to wonder how they were so confident, but it was human pride, a feeling we could conquer anything, even the vast ocean. This ship felt like a symbol of that power, showing how we sometimes trust our own cleverness over nature's raw strength. We often believe our inventions can solve every problem, that our designs are flawless. We predict absolute safety. Think about studying hard for a test, feeling ready. You walk in, confident, thinking I've got this. But then you see a question you never expected. That moment of doubt, that shift from certainty to oh no, what if? For the Titanic, that oh no moment was huge, cold, dark, miles from anywhere. The collision with the iceberg shattered that belief in everlasting safety. Imagine the shock, the disbelief as people realized the unthinkable was happening. The ship, human engineering's pride, was actually sinking. It was a heartbreaking, icy lesson. Even our strongest certainties can be fragile. This story stays with us, not just as a tragedy, but as a reminder. It teaches us to be humble. It tells us that even when we feel secure, there's always something bigger, something we haven't considered. It's a quiet whisper. Listen closely. Pay attention. Don't be so sure. How a novel predicted the atomic bomb's power can. A writer's imagination really glimpsed the future, seeing things decades before they actually happen. It sounds like science fiction itself, but sometimes a story can hold a startling truth. Think about H.G. Wells, a famous writer from a long time ago. In 1914, he published a novel called The World Set Free. Now, this was years before anyone even dreamed of a real atomic bomb. But here's the thing. Wells wrote about a weapon he called an atomic bomb. He imagined a hand grenade-sized device, made of an element like uranium, that would create an explosion that didn't just happen once and then stop. Instead, he pictured it exploding continuously, for days, even years. Once it was set off, he called it a sun that never sets, describing cities destroyed by its ongoing fire. People back then didn't truly understand atoms or the massive energy locked inside them, but Wells, through pure storytelling, somehow grasped the chilling concept of a continuous nuclear chain reaction. It's like imagining you drop one tiny marble, and that marble hitting another, and that one hitting a third, creating a never-ending line of marbles, all pushing each other with immense force. But instead of marbles, imagine tiny, invisible particles inside atoms, hitting each other over and over, releasing unbelievable energy each time. Wells somehow saw this destructive dance in his mind's eye. When the real atomic bombs were developed much later, scientists were stunned by Wells's vision. His fictional atomic bomb was shockingly close to the immense power of the actual weapon. This story makes us pause and wonder deeply. It shows us the incredible, sometimes frightening, power of human thought, to invent, to create, and to imagine dark possibilities long before they become real. It reminds us that our ideas can shape our world, sometimes in ways we can barely comprehend, holding both wonder and a quiet, heavy responsibility for what we bring into existence. The old thinker who saw climate change coming, the old thinker who saw climate change coming, have you ever wondered if people long ago could see glimpses of our future? Sometimes, old thinkers truly did. Long before smartphones, a brilliant scientist, Svante Arrhenius, felt something big coming, what we now call climate change. He lived in the late 1800s. Factories boomed, burning tons of coal. Most people just saw smoke disappear. But Arrhenius saw more. He asked a deep question. What happens to all that invisible carbon dioxide we're putting into the air? Here's the thing. Earth has a natural blanket of gases. This blanket traps some sun's heat, keeping our planet warm. It's like your cozy quilt on a chilly night. It holds your body heat. Arrhenius realized if we kept adding more blanket gases, like carbon dioxide from burning fuels, that blanket would get thicker. And when you add more blankets to your bed, you get warmer, right? That's what he predicted for Earth. He did the math, figuring doubling carbon dioxide could warm the planet by a few degrees. Imagine your room getting a little warmer every year. Slowly, that's what he meant. It took over a century for the world to grasp Arrhenius's warning. His ideas seemed too big. But today, the warming he warned about is happening. It makes you think, how much can we learn if we pay close attention to the world and to quiet voices from the past? Our actions today echo far into tomorrow. Understanding that is power. When scientists talked about cloning years ago, imagine for a moment a dream from long ago. A dream where you could perfectly copy a living thing. Not just a picture, but life itself. This incredible thought is what scientists began to talk about years ago. Cloning. Simply put, cloning means making an exact genetic copy of an organism. It's like hitting the duplicate button on a living being, creating a new one that is genetically identical to the original. Long before we had the technology, people imagined it. Think about old science fiction stories or myths where new beings were created in unusual ways. The idea of making life has always been a powerful human curiosity. It's a deep wonder mixed with a little fear. Scientists quietly wondered if nature held such a secret, a way to reproduce without traditional parents, using just one original blueprint. This wasn't just fantasy. It was a serious question about biology itself. It's a bit like making a perfect photocopy of an important paper. The new copy looks exactly like the old one, word for word. But instead of paper, imagine doing that with the tiny building blocks of a sheep, a frog, or even a human cell. The original still exists, and now you have an identical copy. This is different from identical twins, who start as one egg that splits. Here, you're starting with one fully formed cell and replicating it entirely. So, when scientists whispered about cloning, they weren't just talking about a technical trick. They were touching on something profound, what it means to be unique, what life is, and the immense responsibilities such knowledge brings. It made people stop and think, not just about what could be done, but what should be done. This prediction, once seeming impossible, slowly moved from science fiction into the real world. It made us look at the very start of life in a completely new way, full of wonder and deep questions. The idea of a world library on your computer. Have you ever stopped to think about what it would feel like to know everything? Not just a lot, but everything. To have every story ever told, every secret whispered, every scientific discovery, every piece of art and music, right there, waiting for you. For thousands of years, this was just a beautiful, impossible dream. Imagine the Grand Library of Alexandria. In ancient times, a place legendary for holding vast amounts of knowledge. Scholars would travel for years just to read a few precious scrolls. But even then, most people, most ideas, were left out. Knowledge was a rare jewel, locked away, fading with time. The thought of losing such wisdom must have been heartbreaking. But here's the thing about people. We never stopped reaching. We kept dreaming of a way for all books, all art, all human thought to live together, easily found by anyone, anywhere. Think about it like this. When you're curious about why leaves change color, or how a video game character was designed, or what life was like for someone 100 years ago, you used to have to search for ages. You might have visited many libraries, read heavy books, or talked to older relatives. Now, with a few taps, a few words typed into a search bar, that information appears. It's like having every wise teacher, every author, every artist, every historian, sitting quietly inside your computer or phone, ready to share their world with you. This isn't just about making homework easier, though it certainly helps. It's about something much deeper, a quiet, powerful connection to every human who ever thought a big thought or felt a strong feeling. It's about the shared journey of humanity, laid bare for us. Each click isn't just finding a fact, it's opening a door to another person's understanding, another time's struggles and joys. This endless access, this gentle power, shifts how we understand our past and imagine our future. It whispers that we are all part of a grand, ongoing story, and now, those stories are closer, more alive, and more deeply felt than ever before. It's a profound gift, a silent echo of countless voices across all the years. How one movie showed us virtual worlds. What if the world you see, the one you touch and feel every day, wasn't truly the only reality? What if other worlds existed, hidden just beyond our everyday lives? It's a question that makes you look differently at familiar things. A movie, released a while ago, dared to ask this. It painted a powerful picture of a future where humanity lived inside a computer simulation, not like a video game you play and turn off, but a world so complete, so flawlessly convincing, that the people within it never suspected it wasn't real. Their entire existence was a carefully constructed digital dream. This wasn't a totally new thought. Ideas like this have echoed through time. Long ago, a Greek thinker named Plato told a story about people trapped in a cave. All they ever saw were shadows dancing on a wall. They grew up believing those flickering shadows were the true world. Plato wondered if maybe our own reality was just like those shadows, not the full picture. So, this modern movie, with its stunning visuals, brought that ancient question to life. It made us feel the weight of that possibility in a new way. Here's the thing. It's a bit like when you put on a virtual reality headset. For a while, the room around you just fades away. Suddenly, you're standing on a majestic mountain, or exploring a distant galaxy. Your eyes see it, your ears hear it, and your mind, for those moments, almost entirely believes you're truly there. That movie took that powerful, immersive feeling and stretched it across an entire lifetime, making its characters believe everything around them was real, even when it was just code. It makes us wonder, doesn't it? This deep, quiet question about what's truly real and what isn't. It's not about being scared, but about a gentle nudge to stay curious, to always question, to always look deeper, and to never stop marveling at the sheer mystery of simply existing. Even if our world is exactly what it seems, thinking about other possibilities opens new paths in our minds. It helps us see our own reality with a fresh sense of wonder. The prediction of machines making everything. Have you ever stopped to wonder, truly wonder, about all the things around you? Your phone, your clothes, even the food you ate this morning. For a long time, people have dreamed of a future where machines, not human hands, would build everything. This wasn't just a fantasy, it was a deep, quiet hope, shared across centuries. Long ago, thinkers and storytellers imagined clever devices that could move or perform tasks on their own. They pictured a world where humans wouldn't have to spend their lives toiling. They saw a future where machines would shoulder heavy burdens, freeing up human minds and hands. Then came the Industrial Revolution. Factories started popping up, powered by steam and later electricity. People watched as giant looms wove fabric faster than any person could. They saw machines shaping metal, assembling parts, doing the work of hundreds with tireless precision. This was the start. Here's the thing. That prediction largely came true. Think about the sneakers you might be wearing right now. Every cut of fabric, every stitch, every rubber sole, it's almost all done by machines in huge factories. A machine dyes the threads, another cuts the pieces, and then other robotic arms put it all together. It's amazing how few human hands actually touch your shoe during its creation compared to how it used to be. So this dream of machines doing almost everything is a big part of our everyday life. It gives us things faster, cheaper, and often with great quality. But what does it mean for us? It means we have more free time. Perhaps. It lets us explore new ideas, and that's why it matters. But it also makes us pause and think about the value of human touch, the spark of human creativity. It makes you wonder what truly makes something special when a machine can create it perfectly every time. It's a quiet question that stays with us as the world keeps building itself, piece by machines. When people thought we'd talk through wires across countries, have you ever stopped to think about how amazing it is to just pick up a phone and talk to someone far away? Before cell phones, before even regular phones, sending a message across the country took weeks. You'd write a letter, and then you'd wait For a very long time, the thought of actually speaking to someone not in the same room, especially across continents, felt like pure fantasy. It was a dream that seemed impossible. But then, people started to wonder, what if words could travel? What if thin wires, stretching over land and under the deep ocean, could carry voices? This wasn't just about new machines, it was about a profound human need. People desperately wanted to connect across vast distances. They wanted to share big news instantly, tell loved ones they were safe, and simply feel closer, even when oceans separated them. The idea of speaking into a device and your voice magically appearing thousands of miles away must have felt like pure magic. How could invisible sound travel along metal? Think about how you feel when you video call a grandparent far away. You see their smile, hear their laugh. It makes the distance shrink. That's a bit like the wonder people felt imagining talking through wires. It was excitement and disbelief, seeing the impossible become real. The human heart always seeks to bridge gaps, to overcome the miles that keep us apart. And that's why this idea matters. This deep wish to connect, to make our huge world feel smaller. It's a timeless human story. It shows us that some of our wildest ideas, the ones that seem totally out of reach, can become the most normal parts of our future. It reminds us of our constant longing to reach out, to share, and to not feel so alone, no matter how far away we are from those we care about. The ancient Greek who knew the earth was round. Have you ever stopped to really think about how we know the earth is round? It seems obvious to us now, right? We see pictures from space, we fly around it. But for a very long time, people believed our world was flat. Imagine living then, believing you could sail to an edge and just fall off. It's a heavy thought, isn't it? This big, flat disk floating in space. But here's the thing. Thousands of years ago, an amazing mind from ancient Greece figured it out. His name was Eratosthenes, and he didn't have rockets or satellites. He just had his brain, his eyes, and a deep curiosity about the world. He observed something simple but profound. He noticed that at noon on a certain day of the year, in one city, the sun cast no shadow at all. It shone straight down into a deep well. But in another city, further north, at the exact same time, a stick would cast a clear shadow. Think about that for a moment. If the earth were flat, the sun's rays would hit every spot at the exact same angle at noon. All sticks would cast the same shadow, or no shadow at all. But because the earth is a curve, a sphere, the sun's light touches different parts at slightly different angles. It's a bit like shining a flashlight on a basketball versus a flat table. The shadows fall differently, revealing the curved dot. So, Eratosthenes used these shadow differences, along with the measured distance between the two cities, to actually calculate the Earth's circumference, and he was incredibly close to the true number. It's truly mind-blowing, isn't it? To stand on what everyone thought was flat ground, and through pure thought and observation, realize it was a giant, spinning ball. It makes you wonder what other truths are hidden in plain sight, just waiting for someone curious enough to observe and understand. It's a quiet reminder of how amazing our own minds can be, if we just keep looking up, and keep asking questions. How Columbus proved an old idea, right? Have you ever looked at a map, tracing a finger across oceans, and felt a quiet wonder about how much of the world we truly understand? For a very long time, people argued about the shape of our home. Many believed the earth was a flat disk, that sailing too far would mean falling off the edge into oblivion. It's a scary thought, isn't it? To believe there's a real, final end to everything you know, just beyond the horizon dot. But here's the thing, even thousands of years before Columbus, smart people like ancient Greek thinkers already had a different idea. They used shadows, stars, and ships disappearing mast first over the horizon to figure it out. They looked at the world and saw a curve. They predicted it was round, a giant sphere floating in space. It was a powerful, beautiful idea, but it was just that, an idea, a calculation. It lived in books and in learned minds, not in the everyday experience of most people. Think of it like this. You might see a diagram of the human heart in a science book. You understand how it works, what it looks like. But until you actually see a beating heart on a monitor, or hold a model in your hands, it's still mostly a concept. The theory is there, clear as day, but the proof feels distant. Then came Christopher Columbus. He wasn't trying to prove the earth was round. He already believed that old idea, the one the Greeks had shared so long ago. What he wanted to prove was that you could sail west, right across that vast, unknown ocean, and reached the east. He was betting his life, and the lives of his crew, on that ancient, quiet prediction. He was putting a centuries-old theory to the ultimate test. And when his ships finally sighted land, after weeks of fear and doubt, it wasn't just a new continent they found. It was a tangible, undeniable confirmation of an old, beautiful truth. It was a moment where an abstract idea became real, solid ground beneath trembling feet. It showed us the amazing courage it takes to not just believe an idea, but to chase it across the world. The math guy who predicted a comet's next visit. Have you ever looked up at the night sky, wondering if anyone could know what's coming next? For ages, comets were huge mysteries. They just appeared, bright streaks of light from nowhere. People felt small and afraid, thinking these visitors from space were unpredictable, even bad omens. But then, an amazing English scientist, Edmund Halley, came along in the late 1600s. He was a true math whiz. He saw something different, not chaos, but a pattern. He studied old comet records, noting when and where they appeared. He used the brilliant new math of his friend Isaac Newton about how gravity works. Newton showed gravity guides planets and comets in a specific, predictable dance. Halley had a powerful idea. He noticed 3 comets had appeared in 1531, 1607, and 1682. Their paths and timing were so similar, it couldn't be chance. He thought, what if these weren't 3 different comets? What if it was the same comet, just making a return visit? It's like knowing your favorite show airs every Tuesday. You expect the same one. He worked through his calculations with intense focus. Then, he made a very bold prediction. He said this comet, now called Halley's Comet, would return in 1758. He wouldn't live to see it, but he believed in human reason and the universe's order. And guess what? It did. Right on schedule, years after Halley was gone, the comet appeared, just as he calculated. Imagine that. A person, using only their mind, reached across time and space to predict a cosmic traveler's return. It shows us the universe isn't a random mess. Instead, it follows grand, beautiful rules. And we, with enough curiosity, can truly understand them. There's a quiet comfort in knowing we can figure out such vast mysteries. When someone said a new planet was out there, Pluto, have you ever looked up at the night sky, at all those twinkling lights, and truly wondered if there was something else, something hidden, just waiting to be found? It's a feeling that has stirred hearts for centuries, a deep, quiet yearning to know what lies beyond. For a long time, we thought we knew all the major planets in our cosmic neighborhood, but then, some very smart people started noticing something odd. Here's the thing. Planets like Uranus and Neptune weren't just stumbled upon by chance. Scientists, with their keen eyes, studied the precise way the known planets moved through space. They saw tiny, almost invisible wobbles, slight tugs that couldn't be explained by the gravity of the planets we already knew. It was a subtle whisper from the cosmos, like noticing a perfectly balanced mobile, slowly shifting, as if an invisible hand was gently nudging one of its parts. So, they made a truly bold prediction. There had to be another, unseen object out there, a new world, pulling on the others. And amazingly, through careful math, they were proven right. Can you imagine the sheer wonder of predicting a whole new planet, just by watching its neighbors? This deep sense of wonder is where the story of Pluto begins. Even after Neptune was found, some astronomers still suspected there might be yet another planet X influencing things. It was a long, patient search. It took a young, dedicated astronomer named Clyde Tombaugh, patiently comparing sky photos night after night, for months, to finally spot it in 1930, a tiny, faint speck of light, so far away in the cold, dark reaches of our solar system. A new planet, they declared with excitement. But here's what happened later. As our understanding grew, our telescopes got much better. We found many more icy objects, just like Pluto, out in that distant part of space. Pluto, it turned out, was different from the giant planets we knew. So, the way we defined planet changed. Pluto became a dwarf planet. And that's why it matters. Not because Pluto stopped being important, but because the human spirit of curiosity, that endless urge to look deeper, to predict, to explore, never stops. It teaches us that our knowledge of the universe is always expanding, always becoming richer. It's a truly powerful and hopeful thought that we keep learning, keep opening our minds to the vastness of everything. The dream of landing on Mars one day. Have you ever looked up at the night sky, spotted that tiny reddish glow, and just wondered, really wondered if humans could ever actually go there. That distant red planet, Mars, has been a silent invitation for generations. For centuries, people have imagined what it would be like to stand on its dusty surface, to look back at Earth, our home, now just another star in the cosmic ocean. This isn't just a science fiction story, it's a deep, human longing. Think about it like this. Throughout history, humans have always looked beyond the visible horizon. Ancient sailors set out across unknown seas, not knowing what lay on the other side, driven by curiosity and a yearning for something new. That same spirit, that same quiet pull, lives in us today. It's why we explore new parts of our town, or learn a new skill, or even just open a book about a far-off place. We are built to discover, to push boundaries. It's a bit like when you're playing a video game and you've explored every corner of the first level. You've mastered it, but then a new, locked level appears, challenging you. You want to see what's inside, what new adventures await. Mars is like that next level for humanity. It represents the ultimate next step, a new frontier to learn from and grow into. This dream of Mars isn't just about rockets or technology. It's about what it means to be human, our enduring hope, our courage to face the unknown, and our deep desire to understand the universe and our place within it. Even if landing on Mars is still a grand challenge, the act of dreaming about it and working towards it shapes us. It pushes us to invent, to cooperate, and to solve problems together. It helps us see our own precious planet with a renewed sense of wonder and responsibility. This dream reminds us that some of our greatest journeys begin not with a giant leap, but with a quiet thought, looking up at the stars. How writers saw space stations in the sky. Have you ever gazed at the night sky, seeing countless stars, and wondered what it would be like to live up there? To have a home orbiting our Earth, floating amongst the silence. For a long time, people dreamed of such places. Before engineers could draw a blueprint, writers imagined these cities in the sky. They saw space stations not just as metal structures, but as beacons of human ambition. They pictured spinning worlds where new lives could begin. This was a deep, hopeful vision. It's amazing to think about. Hundreds of years ago, when travel meant only horses or sailing ships, brave minds dared to look past Earth's horizon. They didn't just tell stories for fun. They explored what humanity could become, what wonders we might build far beyond our planet. This wasn't about guessing the future perfectly. Instead, it was about a deep human feeling, a longing to reach out, to touch the unknown. These writers expressed a universal yearning for exploration, a quiet hope for what lay beyond our grasp. Think about it like this. Maybe you've drawn a picture of an incredible treehouse you wished for, or planned a fantastic journey in your head. The idea, the vision, existed first in your mind, right? It was a seed planted by your imagination. Even if that treehouse was never built, or the journey never taken, the dream itself was real. It shaped your thoughts. These early writers crafted detailed worlds, picturing entire communities living in orbit. They made the impossible feel possible through pure belief in human ingenuity. So, when we see images of the International Space Station today, or read about future plans for space habitats, we're not just looking at metal and technology. We're also seeing the echoes of ancient dreams. We're witnessing predictions born from the quiet, powerful depths of human imagination coming true. It shows us that sometimes, the biggest steps we take begin not with a rocket launch, but with a whispered thought, a story shared, a vision held close by a writer whose emotional connection to the stars helped us finally reach them. The bold idea of controlling the weather. Have you ever looked up at a stormy sky, or wished for rain on a scorching day, and thought, what if we could just change it? It's a powerful thought, isn't it? This isn't just a daydream, it's an idea that has echoed through human history. The bold, almost unbelievable dream of controlling the weather itself. For thousands of years, people have watched the skies with a mix of awe and fear. Rain meant food, sunshine meant warmth, but too much of either could bring disaster. So, they prayed, performed rituals, and even tried to make deals with the forces they believed governed the wind and rain. This wasn't about understanding science. It was about survival. It was about feeling helpless against something so huge, so unpredictable. And deep down, there was this yearning to somehow, just somehow, have a say in it. Think about it like this. When you're playing a video game, you have a controller, right? You make your character jump, run, or cast spells. The idea of controlling the weather is like wanting a giant, invisible controller for the clouds, the sun, and the wind. It's an urge to be the player in the biggest game of all, nature itself. But here's the thing, nature isn't a game, and it doesn't always follow our rules. So, when we consider trying to steer the immense power of a hurricane or call forth a sudden downpour, it makes us pause. It reminds us of our place in the world. Maybe true strength isn't always about control, but about finding a way to live with the world as it is, to adapt, and to respect its incredible, untamed power. It's a humbling thought, how much we still have to learn. When we predicted touchscreens decades ago, have you ever thought about how much we just expect our phones and tablets to work when we touch them? We swipe, we tap, we zoom with our fingers, and it feels completely natural. But here's the thing, this idea, this dream of touching a screen and having it respond, wasn't always a reality. In fact, people were imagining touchscreens long before the first actual one appeared. Think back to old science fiction movies or books. Sometimes you'd see characters on screen, pressing glowing panels or sliding things with their hands. It wasn't just about cool technology, it was about a deeper wish. They wanted to connect directly with their tools. No keyboard or mouse in the way. They wanted to reach through the glass and make things happen, almost like magic. This desire for a more personal way to control machines has been with us for a long time. It's human nature to want to simplify, to make things feel like an extension of ourselves. It's like when you're drawing on paper. You don't use a special tool to tell your hand where to go. Your hand is the tool. That's what people yearned for. They wanted the screen itself to be their canvas, their control panel, and that's why it matters. Decades ago, these were just wild fantasies. People dreamed of screens that would understand a finger's gentle press, a quick swipe, or a careful pinch. And eventually, those dreams became our everyday reality. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other impossible ideas are we dreaming up today that will become common for people in the future? It shows us the quiet power of human imagination, how a simple idea, held onto for generations, can eventually reshape our world, piece by tiny, hopeful piece. The sci-fi story about buying things online, have you ever just stopped for a moment and truly thought about how we buy things now? It's kind of incredible, right? We sit on our couch, tap a screen, and in a few days, something arrives. Something we ordered from someone we've never met, from a place we might never visit. This simple act, this click, used to be pure science fiction, before this invisible shopping mall existed. Buying things meant physically going to a store, or, for bigger items, a mail order, catalog. You'd flip pages, send a check, then wait, sometimes weeks. It was a leap of faith, sending money to a company far away, hoping a package would show up. But even back then, people dreamed of more. Writers imagined a future where you could connect instantly with goods across the globe. They pictured a world where distance melted, where you could wish for something, and it would simply, arrive. It felt impossible, like a fantasy. Yet, here's what happened. Those dreams began to take shape. Think about it like this. Imagine you're obsessed with a certain limited edition pair of sneakers. In the past, you'd search every shoe store in your city, or even travel. Now, you can find them online, compare prices, read reviews, and order them without leaving your room. It's like a worldwide treasure hunt made easy, connected by invisible threads. This shift isn't just about convenience. It's a profound change in how we relate to the world and each other. We put our trust into systems we can't see, powered by minds we don't know. It reminds us of human imagination's incredible power, how a wild, impossible idea can slowly become our everyday reality. It shrinks our planet, making everything accessible. That, in itself, is a kind of magic, a quiet testament to the human spirit that always dares to dream what's next. How a play predicted the idea of human-like robots. Have you ever looked at a really advanced machine, like a smart speaker, and wondered if it could almost think, more than just wires and code? It's a deep thought. This idea of human-like machines isn't new. Long before our modern computers, someone imagined them. Here's the thing. Almost 100 years ago, in 1920, a Czech writer named Karel Čapek wrote a play called RUR, that stands for Rossum's Universal Robots. And in this play, he introduced a word that changed everything. Robot. He didn't invent the word entirely. His brother Joseph suggested it, from a Czech word meaning forced labor. But Karel Čapek made it famous. His robots weren't the metal figures we imagine today. Instead, they were artificial beings, made to look and act like humans. Their job was to do all the hard work, so people could live easy lives. It sounds amazing, a future without struggle. But the play explored what happens when these created beings start to feel, to learn, and question their purpose. It explored what it truly means to be alive. Think about a smart speaker. You ask it to play music or tell a joke. It responds, almost like it understands you. But you know it's just a program. Zopic's play asks, what if that speaker truly developed feelings? What if it suddenly felt tired, or sad, or wanted something for itself? It makes you wonder about the very nature of life, doesn't it? What makes us human? Is it our bodies, our thoughts, our feelings? This old play didn't just give us a new word. It asked us to think deeply about our future and the world we might create, and the responsibilities that come with such power. It's a quiet reminder that the predictions which truly matter aren't about exact dates, but about the bigger questions that stay with us, echoing through time. The vision of medicine just for you. Have you ever thought about how doctors know just what you need when you're sick? It's kind of amazing, right? For a long time, medicine was more about general rules. Doctors would see a sickness, like a fever, and try the same few things for everyone. It was like buying a one-size-fits-all shirt. Sometimes it worked okay, but sometimes it just didn't feel right, or fit at all. But here's what happened. Some brilliant minds, long ago, started to wonder. They thought, what if each person is different? What if the same illness acts a little differently in you than in me? This was a big change in thinking. It wasn't just about the disease anymore. It became about you, the person who had the disease. It's like a chef learning to cook not just a dish, but a dish perfect for your taste buds. Knowing what you like and what you don't. Think about it like your favorite video game. When you first start, you might pick a standard character, but soon, you're customizing everything. Their look, their skills, how they play. You make them yours. That's kind of how medicine started to evolve. Doctors began to really pay attention to the unique story your body was telling. They looked at your specific symptoms, your history, even what makes you well. This slow, quiet change, from treating a general sickness to understanding your particular struggle, was a huge step. It meant that doctors started to see more than just a patient. They saw a whole human being with individual needs, and that's why it matters. It gives us a feeling of being truly cared for, knowing that someone is looking at our unique puzzle. It's a comfort to know that medicine tries to see each of us, not just our sicknesses, but us, completely. When computers were expected to beat chess champs, have you ever thought about what makes us truly smart? Not just good at math or remembering facts, but the kind of deep thinking where you plan many steps ahead, like in a complicated game. For a long time, people believed that this kind of brilliant strategy, especially in chess, was something only a human brain could do. Chess was seen as the ultimate test, a quiet battlefield where human cleverness and foresight shone brightest. So here's the thing, when the first computers started to appear, some people began to wonder, could these machines, just wires and code, ever truly think? Could they eventually outwit a grandmaster, the best human chess player in the world? Many believed it was impossible. They argued that a computer could never feel the pressure, or invent a truly creative, surprising move. They thought human intuition and the spark of genius were far too special, too unique to us. It's a bit like imagining your calculator suddenly solving problems you haven't even learned yet, or your video game console not just playing the game, but understanding and changing the rules in a clever way. That's how big and strange this idea felt back then. It challenged what people thought made us unique. It was a prediction that seemed to touch on something deeply human, our intelligence. And then, one day, it happened. A computer did beat the world's best chess player. It wasn't just a win. It felt like a quiet rumble deep inside how we understood ourselves. It made us ask big questions. Is thinking just about logic and calculations? Or is there something more to being human that a machine can't grasp? It showed us that intelligence comes in many forms, some we hadn't even imagined building ourselves. And maybe, just maybe, our own minds are not the only wondrous things capable of such amazing feats. It left us with a feeling of quiet awe, and a new way to wonder about the future we were creating. The thinker who said, we'd live much longer. Have you ever stopped to think about how long people used to live? Not so long ago, reaching 50 was a huge achievement. Many didn't even make it past childhood. It makes you wonder, Who first imagined a world where we could live for so much longer? A world where science could add years to our lives. Centuries ago, a brilliant English thinker named Francis Bacon had just such a vision. He lived before modern hospitals or understanding germs. Back then, sickness often meant a quick end, and people just accepted it. But Bacon saw things differently. He believed that through careful study, through what we now call science, humans could understand the world better, and by understanding it, we could change it. Here's the thing. Bacon predicted we'd live longer. He didn't just hope for it. He wrote that science could conquer diseases and improve health, pushing the boundaries of human lifespan. He saw science as a powerful tool, like an inventor with a blueprint for a future machine. He believed we could actively work to get more time, not just be stuck with what we were given. Think of it like a puzzle. For centuries, people were just guessing how to put together the human body. Bacon said, "No, let's really study the pieces. Let's understand how they fit." He saw a way to fix what was broken and make us stronger, not with magic, but with real knowledge. His ideas were a quiet spark. They lit a path that generations of scientists followed. Today, because of thinkers like Bacon, our grandparents often live well into their 80s or 90s. We have vaccines, antibiotics, and so much understanding of our bodies. It's a gift that came from a prediction, from someone daring to dream of a longer, healthier future. It reminds us that the biggest changes start with just one powerful thought. It makes you feel a connection across time, doesn't it? Knowing a hope from so long ago now truly shapes our lives. How ancient maps showed lands we didn't know. Imagine staring at an old map, maybe from hundreds of years ago, but instead of familiar countries, you see vast, empty spaces marked terra incognita, unknown land, or even stranger. You see detailed mountains and rivers where, according to history, no one had yet been. How could mapmakers draw lands they hadn't seen, lands we didn't even know existed? It's a powerful, almost haunting thought, isn't it? Here's the thing. Ancient people were just as curious as we are. They looked out at the ocean, or beyond the mountains, and wondered what lay there. Sometimes, they'd hear whispers of distant shores from sailors who had barely made it back, or from travelers sharing tales. And sometimes, they just guessed. They filled in the blanks on their maps with what they believed might be there, based on patterns, myths, or perhaps a deep human instinct that the world was bigger than their immediate view. This wasn't always about being right. Often, these predicted lands were wildly inaccurate in their details, but they represented something vital: hope. The maps were a testament to human longing, a silent prayer for discovery. They showed courage, because drawing something unknown meant admitting that your world wasn't complete, and daring to imagine it could be more. It was like drawing a picture of your own future. You might not know every single step, or every person you'll meet, but you sketch in possibilities. You hope for amazing adventures. So, these ancient maps, with their ghost continents and phantom islands, weren't just mistakes. They were whispers from the past, reminding us that curiosity is a powerful force. They tell us that even before we find something, the very act of believing it's out there can guide us. And that's why it matters. They show us how deeply human it is to search for what's beyond the horizon. Even if all you have is a feeling, a hope, or a shaky line drawn on parchment. They whisper of a world always waiting to be found, if only we dare to look. The time scientists guessed how fast light moves. Have you ever really thought about light? Not just seeing it, but how it moves. For a long time, people just assumed light was instant. You flip a switch, and light's there, appearing everywhere at once, like magic. But curious people began to wonder, does light move? Does it have a speed, like a fast car? Think about Galileo. He tried an experiment. He stood on one hill with a lantern, his assistant on another, far-off hill. Galileo would uncover his lantern. When his assistant saw that light, he'd immediately uncover his own. Galileo would try to time it, but it happened so fast, he couldn't measure a delay. It still felt instant. It showed how quick light is. We see a slower version of this during a thunderstorm. You see lightning almost right away, right? But the rumble of thunder, the sound, takes a little longer to reach you. The farther away the storm, the longer the gap. That's because sound travels much, much slower than light. Light is like a super-fast message, arriving instantly. Sound takes longer. So, light does have a speed, an almost unbelievable speed. It travels around Earth over 7 times in 1 second. It's the fastest thing we know. Figuring this out, understanding light travels, not just appears, was a huge moment. It changed how we saw our world, from tiny particles to distant stars. It's a powerful thought, isn't it? For centuries, we lived with light without truly grasping its nature. But human curiosity, that quiet need to ask how, kept pushing us. By observing and asking questions, we slowly uncovered amazing secrets. It reminds us that even ordinary things hold wonders, waiting for us to understand. This journey of discovery is a beautiful, endless one. When people thought we'd have robot helpers, did you ever look at an old movie and see kitchens with shiny robots cooking dinner? Or living rooms where a polite machine tidied up, folded clothes, and even walked the dog? It feels like a dream, right? For a long time, people truly believed that by now, we would all have robot helpers. Not just simple machines, but clever, walking, talking friends who handled boring, repetitive chores. They imagined a future where our days would be spent on creative things, or simply relaxing, because robots would do the heavy lifting. This idea isn't new. For centuries, people dreamt of tools that could think and act on their own. Ancient stories talk about mechanical figures that served powerful rulers. Later, as machines did the work of many hands, the thought grew, what if a machine could do everything? So, here's the thing. Predicting this future wasn't just about technology. It was about a deep, human hope. A hope that our lives could be easier, less burdened by endless tasks. It was a wish for more freedom, for more time to simply be. Think about how you feel after a long day of school, with chores and homework looming. Imagine someone saying, "Don't worry, a friendly robot will handle it all." That's the feeling people had. They saw these robot helpers as a way to escape the grind, a magical solution to daily pressures. But here's the truth. While technology has certainly made things easier, think about dishwashers or robot vacuums. We don't have those all-purpose human-like helpers, and that's okay. Maybe the beauty isn't in escaping all work, but in finding meaning in what we do, even the everyday tasks. Perhaps the real prediction wasn't about the robots themselves, but about our ongoing desire for ease and innovation. It reminds us that sometimes the future we imagine is less about what actually happens, and more about what we deeply wish for in our hearts. It shows us a quiet, persistent hope, a longing for a world where life feels a little lighter. The idea of DNA as our body's secret code. Have you ever really thought about how you came to be? Not just born, but how your eyes got their color, or why you have certain talents. It feels a little like magic, right? But long ago, people started to guess there was a kind of hidden message inside us, a secret instruction manual. And here's the thing, they were actually getting close to understanding DNA. This amazing thing. DNA is like a tiny invisible code in every single cell of your body. It tells your body how to grow, what to do, even how you might react to certain things. For thousands of years, humans looked at families and saw kids resembling their parents. They knew something was passed down. But how? Was it blood? Was it spirit? Philosophers wondered about this deep connection, this invisible thread that links generations. They saw predictions come true right in front of their eyes. A child would grow up with a parent's nose, or a grandparent's knack for music. They couldn't name it DNA, but they felt its presence. It's powerful, quiet whisper across time, guiding the making of each new person. Think of it like this. Imagine your favorite dessert. To make it, you need a recipe, right? That recipe has exact instructions, how much sugar, how many eggs, what temperature to bake it at. If you follow it carefully, you get that perfect cake or cookie. Your DNA is even more complex than any recipe. It's the ultimate instruction book for you. It tells your cells exactly how to build your heart, your brain, your skin, everything that makes you. So, when we think about DNA, we're not just talking about science. We're talking about the incredible story written inside each of us. A story passed down through countless generations, connecting us to everyone who came before. It's a quiet wonder, knowing that a tiny, invisible code holds so much of who you are, making you truly unique, and yet also deeply connected to all life. It makes you feel part of something so much bigger, doesn't it? How one book described cameras watching us. Have you ever felt like someone was watching you, even when no one was around? It's a strange, even eerie feeling, isn't it? Long ago, in 1949, a writer named George Orwell published a book called 1984, and in that book, he imagined a world where cameras really were always watching. Here's the thing, in Orwell's story, people lived with something called a telescreen. It looked like a TV, but it did more. It watched you back. It listened to every word you said, every sound you made, right there in your own home. Imagine that. Everywhere you went, these telescreens were like unblinking eyes. They never turned off. They saw everything. Orwell wrote this not long after a huge world war. He worried about governments having too much power, about people losing their freedom. He wanted to show what a future could look like if that power went too far. It's a chilling idea, thinking that your every private moment could be observed. Every quiet thought, every small action, never truly your own. Think about our world today. We have cameras everywhere, right? At school, in stores, on street corners. Even the phones in our pockets have cameras and microphones. It's not exactly the telescreen from 1984, but the idea of constant observation feels a little closer now. It's like living in a house with glass walls, where you can't ever truly feel hidden. This wasn't just a scary story. It was a warning. It made people think about privacy and how much control we give away. It reminds us to be curious about the world around us, and to ask important questions. What does it mean to be truly free? What parts of our lives should stay private? This book quietly asks us to think about the kind of world we want to live in, and to value the spaces where we can simply be ourselves, unwatched. The prediction of changing genes for good voiceover, calm, reflective, full of wonder. Have you ever wished you could just fix something? Not just a broken phone or a messy room, but something deeper, more fundamental. Imagine if a part of you, deep inside, was causing trouble, making you sick, and you dreamed of a way to simply correct it. For ages, humans have carried the burden of illness, diseases that seemed unfair, unchangeable, passed down through families. People looked at the stars, they prayed, they sought cures in herbs. But some minds, even long ago, began to whisper about something more profound. They wondered if the very blueprint of life, the invisible instructions that make us who we are, could ever be understood, or even changed. Here's the thing. Every single cell in your body has a kind of instruction manual. It's written in tiny codes called genes. These genes tell your hair what color to be, how tall you'll grow, and even how your body fights off colds. But sometimes, there's a typo in that manual. Think about typing an important essay for English class. If you accidentally write "from" instead of "from" in a key sentence, the whole meaning can get messed up. In our bodies, a genetic typo can lead to serious health problems, like cystic fibrosis or sickle cell anemia. This prediction wasn't about treating the symptoms. It was about getting to the very root. It was about the audacious idea that one day, we could actually find that typo and edit it out, carefully, precisely, like a skilled editor fixing a masterpiece, making it perfect, whole. It's a thought that stirs both awe and a quiet sense of hope. Imagining a future where suffering might lessen, and that's why it matters. This isn't just about science. It's about the deep human desire to care, to heal, to ease the pain of those we love. It forces us to think about our power, and the great responsibility that comes with it. We are asked to consider how we will use such knowledge, not for vanity or selfish gain, but for the profound good, with wisdom and a gentle hand. It's a journey from wishing to knowing, from helplessness to a hopeful, thoughtful future. When someone knew we'd have music in our pockets, think about it. How often do you just pull out your phone, pop in some earbuds, and suddenly, your favorite song is playing? It feels totally normal, right? Like it's always been this way, having your own personal soundtrack ready. But here's the thing. Not so long ago, this idea was pure science fiction, a wild, almost impossible dream. Imagine a world where listening to music meant sitting by a big radio, or going to a concert hall, or maybe carefully playing a record. That was life for centuries. Yet, even in those times, some clever people, visionaries really, saw something different coming. They didn't just wish for it, they predicted it. They imagined tiny devices, smaller than a book, that could hold countless songs. They pictured us, walking around, each with our own library of sounds, our own personal concert happening right in our ears. It's like someone centuries ago, seeing a picture of your school backpack today, and knowing you'd have a super powerful computer inside, connecting you to the entire world. They couldn't have known exactly how it would work, or what it would look like, but they felt the deep human need for it. They understood that music isn't just noise, it's feeling, memory, comfort, and they knew we would want to carry that comfort with us everywhere. So, when you're walking to class, or just chilling in your room, listening to your playlists, remember that someone, long ago, quietly believed in that future. They felt the shift before it happened. It's a gentle reminder of how human imagination can shape tomorrow, turning the wildest dreams into our everyday reality, connecting us through time with the silent hope of generations past. The vision of houses that think. Have you ever walked into your home and wished it just knew what you needed? Not a scary mind, but one that understands you. Imagine your home, sensing when you walk in, or when you're cold. It changes the lights just right, or makes the room warmer. This isn't just a fantasy anymore. People have been dreaming about houses like these for a very long time. Hundreds of years ago, people wrote stories. They imagined places that could do things on their own. They pictured rooms that lit up when you entered, or doors that opened without a hand. It seemed like pure magic back then. But here's the thing, it was also a deep hope, a quiet wish for our homes to be more than just walls. They wanted their spaces to feel truly alive, helpful, and connected to them. Think about your phone. It learns what music you like. It suggests things based on what you search for. A smart home is kind of like that. It learns your habits. Maybe it sees you always dim the lights when you watch a movie, so it starts doing it for you. It's like having a really thoughtful, quiet helper who knows you well. And so, what was once a far-off dream, a whisper in old books, is becoming part of our everyday world. It makes us think about comfort, yes, but also about how deeply we wish for things to just work for us, for our spaces to feel like they truly belong to us, like they understand us. It's a quiet connection to something predicted long ago, now unfolding all around us. How authors imagined learning from home. Have you ever wondered what people long ago thought school would be like today? Before computers and the internet, writers tried to guess. They imagined future students learning from home in ways that might surprise you, and maybe even feel a little lonely. For hundreds of years, learning happened in groups. Kids gathered with a teacher, shared books, talked. This was the only way most people knew. So, authors looked ahead and saw a future where this community was lost. They pictured students, often alone, in front of a machine. This machine would teach everything, but it was a solitary path, a quiet space. No buzz of classmates, no friend whispering an answer. One famous story, The Fun They Had by Isaac Asimov, shows this perfectly. Set in 2157, kids learn from a mechanical teacher right at home. No classrooms with other students, no lunch breaks, no passing notes. The character, Margie, feels sad reading about old schools. She misses the idea of kids laughing and shouting together in the schoolyard, learning the same thing, helping each other. Her own mechanical teacher adjusts to her needs, which sounds good, but it's just her and the screen. This makes you think about what we truly value in learning, doesn't it? Is it just facts, or also the shared experience? That feeling of being part of something bigger, figuring things out with others, maybe even struggling alongside a friend. Authors, in their quiet predictions, highlighted this deep human need for connection. They reminded us that knowledge isn't just a download. It's built in shared moments, in the space between people, in the comfort of a friendly face. And that's why it matters. The early talk about machines that can think. Have you ever looked at a really clever toy, one that seems to react to you, and wondered if it could almost think for itself? It's a strange feeling, isn't it? For a very long time, people have imagined machines that could do more than just follow simple commands. They dreamed of things that could understand, learn, and even make their own choices. This amazing idea of giving a machine a kind of mind isn't new at all. It's an idea that reaches far back into human history, like a persistent whisper. Long before electricity or computers, ancient Greek thinkers told captivating stories. They spoke of statues that moved on their own, or magical metal people crafted by gods. These weren't real robots, of course, but they showed a deep human desire. We wanted to create life, or at least a spark of intelligence, outside of ourselves. And thinkers like Aristotle pondered what thought really was. He helped set up questions about whether a machine could ever truly think. Think about a computer playing a game of chess. It can beat almost anyone, right? It knows all the moves, picking the best one every time. But does it truly understand the strategy? Does it feel the thrill of victory or the sting of a bad move, like you might? Or is it just following a brilliant, complex set of instructions perfectly? That's the core of this age-old puzzle. It's about more than just solving problems quickly. It's about the deeper meaning behind thinking itself. It's a really old and powerful dream. This idea of building something that thinks. It makes us wonder what makes us us. and what it truly means to be intelligent. And it makes us wonder at the vast, amazing possibilities ahead, even if they feel a little like magic. It's a gentle journey into the very heart of what intelligence can be. When someone predicted the end of slavery, have you ever thought about something that seems so fixed, so permanent, like it will never, ever change? Imagine a time when slavery wasn't just common, but a huge, deeply woven part of society. It was in laws, in businesses, in people's daily lives, an awful system that trapped millions, stealing their freedom and humanity. For centuries, it felt like an unbreakable chain, a dark thread in the world. But then, quiet voices, sometimes loud, began to whisper, then speak, then shout. This is wrong. This cannot last. These weren't just people wishing things were different. Some truly saw a future where human beings were not owned, where every soul was free. They predicted the end of slavery when it seemed utterly impossible, when the powerful said it was necessary, when the world largely accepted it. How could someone predict such a huge shift? It's like believing that one day, instead of using landlines, we'd all be carrying tiny computers, instantly talking to anyone across the globe. Or like looking at an ancient oak tree that has stood for hundreds of years, its roots deep and wide, and knowing, deep down, that one day it will fall, making way for new growth. Even if that day seems impossibly far off, it takes immense courage and a clear heart to see beyond what is and imagine what could be. It's a belief in a deeper truth, that every person deserves freedom, dignity, and a life of their own. The idea that no human should own another is profoundly simple, yet it was buried under mountains of custom and greed. To predict its end was to hold on to the conviction that this simple truth would ultimately triumph, no matter how long the struggle. This wasn't about magic. It was about understanding human nature, about the slow, steady pressure of justice, about the enduring hope for a better world. It reminds us that even the darkest shadows eventually give way to light. It tells us that what seems unchangeable today might just be waiting for enough people to believe in a different tomorrow. The idea of books for everyone, everywhere. Have you ever thought about how truly amazing it is to just pick up a book, to hold a whole world of ideas, stories, and wisdom right there in your hands? For most of human history, this wasn't possible for everyone. Books were incredibly rare. Each one had to be painstakingly copied by hand, a slow and difficult process that could take months or even years. This meant only very wealthy people or scholars in special monasteries could ever hope to own or even read one. Imagine that. Knowledge, stories, all the insights from past generations, locked away, hidden from almost all of the world. It felt like a deep secret, guarded by just a few. But then, a quiet, powerful idea began to stir. People started to dream bigger. What if every single person could have a book? What if brilliant thoughts and exciting tales weren't just for kings or a chosen few, but for anyone, no matter who they were or where they lived? This wasn't just about new ways to print words. This was a belief in something profound, that learning should be open to all, that every single person deserves a chance to know, to grow, and to explore the vast universe of human understanding. It was like a hopeful whisper across time, promising that knowledge would finally flow like a mighty river, reaching every corner of the land. Don't think about how frustrating it would be if you were trying to figure out a really tough puzzle in science class, or understand a complicated new game, but only a few people in the whole world were allowed to see the instruction manual. How unfair would that feel? How much slower would everyone learn and discover? When books became common, it was like suddenly everyone received access to the instruction manual for life, for history, for science, and for faraway cultures. They could learn incredible things without needing a special invitation or a lot of money. This simple idea, this powerful prediction that books would one day be for everyone, truly changed everything. It helped minds open wide, sparked revolutions in thought, and allowed societies to grow and understand the world in ways nobody could have fully imagined before. Every time you open a book today, you're not just reading words, you are holding the living echo of that ancient, hopeful wish, that understanding, wonder, and truth belong to all of us, always. How a novel showed us future wars and weapons. Have you ever wondered if stories, just words in books, could actually show us what's coming next? It feels strange, almost like a secret window into tomorrow. But sometimes, a writer's mind, full of imagination and a careful eye on the world, can paint pictures of future events that feel eerily real. Not magic, but close attention to human nature. to where our inventions are heading, and imagining where those paths might tragically lead. For centuries, people have been telling tales, and these tales sometimes carry a surprising weight. They become more than just words on a page. They become quiet warnings, or even detailed sketches of things that haven't happened yet. Think about it. Long before the roar of a tank ever shook the ground, writers imagined giant armored beasts clanking across battlefields. Before airplanes dropped bombs from the sky, stories featured flying machines bringing destruction from above, and people wrote about submarines silently moving through the deep ocean. Long before anyone actually built one that could stay underwater for long. Here's the thing. One author, H.G. Wells, wrote about atomic bombs in his novel The World Set Free, way back in 1914. This was decades before anyone truly understood nuclear energy, or even dreamed of creating such a devastating weapon. It's a moment that can send a shiver down your spine, showing how deeply a story can see. It's a lot like when you're drawing a picture, or building something intricate. You don't know exactly how it will turn out, but you can guess based on the shapes and tools you have. Writers look at the tools of their time, new science, old arguments between nations, the human need for power, and they project those into the future. They show us what might happen if we keep going down certain roads, if we don't learn from our past. So, these novels aren't just entertainment, they are echoes from the heart, showing how deeply our thoughts and stories can connect to the world we build. They ask us to pause, to feel the weight of what's possible. They remind us that imagination can be a powerful guide, not just for creating, but for understanding the serious paths our choices might forge. And it makes you quietly wonder what truths, both hopeful and challenging, are being whispered onto pages right now, waiting to show us our own next chapter. The prediction of talking to many people at once. Have you ever felt a sudden urge to share something, right this second, with everyone you know, and even people you don't? What if someone, long ago, imagined a world where your voice could reach hundreds, thousands, even millions, all at once? It seems like magic, doesn't it? But here's the thing. This impossible dream, this wild whisper from the past, actually came true. For centuries, sharing a thought beyond your immediate circle was slow. Ancient thinkers spoke only to the crowd before them. To reach further, they wrote letters, traveling for weeks, or scribbled ideas onto scrolls. The printing press helped, letting books spread knowledge. But even then, imagine the weight. The idea of truly talking to many at once, seeing reactions instantly, that was just a wish. Now, look at us. When you post a picture online, share a story, or join a video call with friends across towns, you're living that old prediction. It's like a superpower. You speak, and your words fly, instantly touching countless minds. It's not just a message, it's a shared moment, a feeling echoed. Think of a live online event, like a concert. People from all over the world watch together, typing comments, feeling the same beat. Their shared excitement creates a huge, invisible room, buzzing with energy. This ability is powerful, almost sacred. Our ancestors dreamed of connecting like this, of sharing one idea that could light up a world. We do it every day, often without realizing its wonder. It reminds us that every word we send out, every thought we share, carries a whisper of that old dream. It's an echo of what once seemed impossible. This gift asks us to connect with kindness, and to remember the quiet hope of those who came before us. When doctors talked about giving new organs, have you ever wondered about the biggest dreams people had long ago, the ones that seemed impossible? Imagine a time when a sick heart or a failing lung usually meant the end. But what if you could just swap it out? Here's the thing. People have dreamed about replacing failing body parts for centuries. It sounds like something from a far-off future, doesn't it? Yet this idea, called organ transplantation, has roots much further back than you might think. The basic idea is simple but powerful. Take a healthy organ from one person, or sometimes an animal, and carefully place it into someone else whose own organ isn't working anymore. It's about giving a second chance, a fresh start, to a life that's fading. For thousands of years, humans have faced sickness and loss. This deep desire to heal what's broken inside us has always been part of our story. Ancient myths often tell of gods or powerful healers granting new body parts. These weren't just made-up stories. They were wishes born from seeing loved ones suffer and wanting desperately to fix them. Think about it like this. Maybe your favorite old toy has a broken arm. Instead of throwing it away, you find another toy and take its arm to fix your favorite. You're giving something new to make the old good again. That's a simple way to picture the core concept. Doctors, even hundreds of years ago, started to think about this in a real way, beyond myths. They looked at the body and wondered, could we truly mend it by replacing a part, just like fixing a machine? It was a bold, almost unbelievable thought, and that's why it matters. This prediction, this long-held dream of organ transplants, wasn't just a sudden scientific discovery. It was a slow, hopeful climb from pure imagination to incredible reality. It reminds us that our deepest human wishes, those born from compassion, often light the way for science. It shows how what was once a fantastical prediction can become one of humanity's most profound achievements. The vision of power from the sun and wind. Have you ever stood outside on a sunny day and just felt the warmth soak into your skin? Or maybe felt a strong gust of wind push you a little, even lifting a kite high into the sky? That feeling, that powerful, endless energy, has always been around us. And for a very long time, people have looked at the sun and the wind and wondered, could we capture this? Could we use these natural forces to power our lives, to light our homes, to move our machines? Here's the thing. It wasn't just a modern idea. Ancient people knew the sun gave life. They sailed the seas using only the wind. Even then, wise thinkers imagined a day when we wouldn't rely on burning things. They dreamed of a clean energy that didn't run out, always there, always new. It was a vision of harmony, not just taking from the earth, but borrowing its power respectfully. Think about the small solar panel on some calculators. It's tiny, but it catches light and makes the calculator work year after year without batteries. Now, imagine that idea, but huge. Giant wind turbines, like silent guardians, catching the invisible breath of the world. Huge fields of mirrors turning sunlight into electricity. It's a bit like us using our own breath to blow bubbles. A simple act, but imagine if you could somehow use that gentle force to do something big. This deep wish, this ancient prediction, tells us something important. It shows how much we yearned for a smarter way to live. It wasn't just about making predictions, but about reaching for a future where we could live in balance. It reminds us that some of our best ideas don't come from new inventions, but from really listening to what nature has already offered us, right there, freely, endlessly. How ancient texts described empires rising and falling. Have you ever looked at something truly grand, something that feels like it will stand forever, and wondered deep down if it truly could, like a giant, towering monument, or a powerful storm covering the whole sky? People thousands of years ago felt that exact wonder and worry about their mighty empires. They watched huge civilizations burst onto the scene, grow incredibly strong, and spread their way of life across vast lands. There was a time of immense pride, of building and creating, but then, inevitably, they would witness those same empires begin to shrink, crumble, or be quietly replaced by new forces. Ancient writers and thinkers, from bustling Greece to the ancient courts of China, weren't just keeping track of dates. They were looking for the heartbeat beneath history, trying to understand the patterns. They observed how a wise leader could inspire a nation, how a strong army could protect and expand, and how brilliant new ideas could make a society flourish, feeling unbeatable. But with a heavy heart, they also saw the other side. They wrote about the dangers of too much pride, the crushing cost of endless wars, or leaders who grew distant, caring only for their own power. These things could slowly, invisibly, weaken an empire from the inside out. They saw this cycle happen again and again, like a grand drama repeating itself through the ages. It's kind of like building a really elaborate fort or a tall tower with blocks. At first, it's exciting. Everything feels solid and balanced. But if you keep adding more pieces without a strong base, or if you pull out key blocks from the bottom, the whole thing eventually wobbles, then leans, and finally, it has to fall. These old texts don't just tell us that empires fell. They show us why. They whisper the weight of those past decisions, the slow, sad slide from glory into dust. These ancient warnings carry a quiet, profound wisdom. They remind us that nothing on earth, no matter how powerful or permanent it seems, truly lasts forever. Lasting strength isn't just about brute force, but also about balance, humility, and the wisdom to adapt. Reading these old, thoughtful words, you begin to understand that even though the world changes constantly, human nature with its grand ambitions and its often repeated flaws stays remarkably the same. Realizing that deep connection across time is a truly powerful, sometimes even bittersweet, understanding the math behind predicting when the sun disappears. Have you ever looked up at the sun, brilliant, and wondered what it would be like if it just vanished? For a few moments, during a total solar eclipse, it actually does. The sky darkens, stars appear in the middle of the day, and a hush falls over everything. It's a powerful, even scary, experience. For thousands of years, people saw these events as signs from angry gods or a coming end to the world. Imagine feeling that fear, watching the light disappear, with no idea if it would ever return. But here's the thing, eclipses aren't magic. They are predictable. Long ago, people noticed patterns in the sky. They watched the moon's phases, the sun's path, and recorded everything. It was like keeping a careful diary of the heavens. They saw that these dark moments weren't random. They happened in a cycle, a cosmic dance. This wasn't just observing. This was early science. They used simple math to figure out when the next eclipse would happen. Think about how you know when your favorite TV show will be on next week. You know it because it follows a schedule, a pattern. The universe has its own schedule. Our ancestors, through careful watching and simple math, learned to read that schedule. They could say, the sun will disappear on this day, at this time, and be right. This prediction wasn't just a cool trick. It was a huge step for humanity. It changed fear into understanding. It showed us that even the most terrifying events had an order, a rhythm we could learn. It meant we weren't just helpless observers. We were students of the cosmos, and that's why it matters. Knowing the math behind the sun's temporary disappearance taught us that with careful thought, we can understand almost anything, turning what seems like chaos into a beautiful, predictable ballet. It gives us a calm sense of wonder, knowing there's a deep order to our vast universe. When philosophers saw a world without kings, have you ever imagined a world where no one was in charge just because of who their parents were? A world where the most powerful person wasn't a king or queen, but instead, the people themselves. For most of history, kings and queens ruled everything. They made all the laws, owned all the land, and decided the fate of everyone. It was just how things were. Everyone simply accepted it, because what else was there? But then, a few brilliant minds, often called philosophers, started to wonder. They looked at the world around them and saw unfairness, wars fought for a king's pride, and people suffering while rulers lived in luxury. They began to ask big, difficult questions. Does a king really have a divine right from God to rule? Or are all people born with certain rights, like the right to live, to be free, and to own things? These thinkers imagined something truly radical. They pictured a society where people weren't subjects, but citizens, where leaders were chosen, not born. Imagine you and your friends are deciding what game to play. If one friend always got to pick, no matter what, just because their family built the playground, that wouldn't feel fair, would it? But if you all talked about it and voted, that feels right. That's a bit like what these philosophers dreamed of, but on a huge scale. For entire countries they wrote books and shared ideas that sparked a quiet fire. They predicted that people would one day demand a voice, that the old ways of absolute power would crumble. And guess what? Their predictions came true. These ideas eventually led to revolutions, to new forms of government, and to the very idea that you, an individual, have rights and a say in your own future. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the biggest changes begin as just a thought, a brave question whispered in the quiet of a philosopher's mind, blooming into a world without kings. The idea of school for every kid. Have you ever stopped to think about how you get to go to school? How it's just a normal part of life, a place where almost everyone gets to learn. It feels natural to us now, but for a very long time, this wasn't true at all. Imagine a world where only the kids from the richest families, or those with power, had the chance to learn to read, write, or understand math. Most children would never step foot in a classroom. They'd work, or stay home, never knowing what books held inside. That's how it was for centuries. But then, a different thought began to bloom. Not a sudden change, but a slow, growing understanding in the minds of wise people. They started to predict a future that seemed almost impossible. Thinkers like Thomas Jefferson imagined a time when education wouldn't be a hidden treasure for just a few. They believed it was a basic right, a tool for everyone. They saw a world where every child, no matter their background, would have the chance to learn and grow. This was a bold prediction, a huge leap of faith in human potential. They believed educated people would make smarter choices, build stronger communities, and make democracy work. Here's the thing, This idea was like predicting that every house would someday have clean water right inside. Before, you might walk miles to a public well. Education used to be like that well, far away for most. But these visionaries saw a future where learning flowed freely, easily accessible, like a clean tap in every kitchen. Giving everyone access to learning would be like giving everyone a reliable map, showing possibilities you never knew existed. And that's why it matters so much today. When you walk into your classroom, when you open a textbook, remember you are living out one of history's most hopeful predictions. You are part of a dream that came true, a quiet revolution of opportunity. It's a profound gift, this chance to explore, to question, and to truly understand the world around you, simply because someone believed in the power of an educated mind for every mind. How one artist imagined flying cars for real. Have you ever looked at the sky and wished you could just float away in your own personal flying machine? It feels like something from a far-off future, doesn't it? But here's the thing. People have been dreaming about flying cars for a very, very long time. Imagine a world over 100 years ago. Airplanes were still a wonder, not something everyone saw every day. Cars were new and exciting, but they definitely stayed on the ground. Yet, a visionary artist, long before our grandparents were born, drew pictures of cities filled with vehicles soaring through the air. He showed families going on trips in their aerocars, zooming past skyscrapers and over vast landscapes. This wasn't just a wild drawing, it was a prediction, a glimpse into a possible future. And that's why it matters. Think about it like this. When you imagine your dream treehouse, you probably draw it first. You sketch out the slide, the secret door, the perfect window. You see it clearly in your mind, even though it's not built yet. That drawing isn't just lines on paper. It's the beginning of something real. It holds your hope, your design, your deepest wish for that special place. That our artist did the same thing with flying cars. He put his imagination onto paper, creating detailed scenes of people living their everyday lives with these incredible machines. He didn't just draw them, he envisioned how they might work, how they would change cities, and how they would feel to people. He painted a picture of a whole new world, years before the technology even existed to build such things. So, what does this tell us? It tells us that our thoughts, our wildest dreams, are often the first steps toward tomorrow. Every great invention starts as a flicker in someone's mind, a quiet idea, a hopeful sketch. It reminds us that imagination isn't just about escaping reality, it's about shaping it, and that, in itself, is a truly amazing and powerful thing. The prediction of easy global travel. Have you ever stopped to really think about how incredible it is that you can fly across an ocean in just a few hours? Or how a train can speed you from one end of a country to another while you sleep? It seems normal to us now, but not so long ago. This kind of journey was just a dream. For most of history, if you wanted to go far away, it took weeks, months, or even years. People traveled by foot, by horse, or on slow, dangerous ships. The world felt huge, vast, and very disconnected. But some people, long before airplanes existed, imagined a different future. They wrote stories about flying machines and airships, about sleek trains that would shrink distances. These were not just daydreams. They were predictions of a world where moving across continents would become simple, common, and safe. Think about it like this. If you wanted to talk to a relative living far away 100 years ago, you'd write a letter. It would take weeks for it to get there, and then weeks for their reply. Now, you can video call them instantly. Easy global travel is like that, but for our physical bodies, it's the difference between a slow letter and an instant conversation. But for being there yourself. The amazing thing is, these predictions came true. What once felt impossible, like visiting ancient ruins in Egypt, or seeing cherry blossoms in Japan without spending a year getting there, is now something many people can do. This isn't just about speed, it's about how much closer it has brought us all. We learn about different cultures, understand new ideas, and realize we share this planet with so many different people, all just a flight away. It makes the world feel like a smaller, more connected place, reminding us that we are all part of one big human story, unfolding across the globe. When someone guessed we'd have instant pictures, have you ever stopped to think about how amazing it is that we can take a picture right now and see it instantly? Just a quick tap on your phone, and there it is. A moment, frozen forever, ready to share. It feels normal to us, doesn't it? But for a very long time, this was pure magic, a dream, Imagine a world where cameras existed, but you had to wait hours, even days, for a picture to develop. That's how it was for most of history. You'd snap a photo, send the film away, and then hold your breath, wondering if it even turned out okay. Here's the thing, long before our phones, and even before the first real instant cameras like Polaroids, someone actually predicted this very thing. His name was Honoré de Balzac, a French writer. He lived way back in the 1800s. In one of his stories, he wrote about a camera that could capture an image in a split second. And then poof, the picture would appear immediately. Think about that. In a time when photography was a slow, clumsy science, he imagined something that seemed impossible. He wasn't talking about a dark room or chemicals. He saw a future where pictures just materialized. It's like when you're drawing something on a piece of paper, and you wish you could just instantly print the image from your mind, perfectly formed. That's the kind of leap Balzac made. He didn't just guess a new technology. He felt the human desire for instant connection, for moments preserved without delay. His prediction wasn't just a clever idea. It showed a deep understanding of what people would want from technology: speed, ease, the power to hold on to time. It reminds us that our deepest wishes, the things we dream of, often push the boundaries of what we think is possible. And sometimes, those dreams, those quiet yearnings for convenience and connection, really do come true, many, many years later. It makes you wonder what impossible things we wish for today might be everyday reality for someone far in the future. The vision of machines that teach themselves. Imagine a machine, not just a robot doing what it's told, but one that learns. What if it could grow smarter on its own, without us programming every step? For ages, this felt like science fiction. But here's the thing. This quiet dream of self-teaching machines has, incredibly, become real. This is machine learning, a big part of artificial intelligence. It means computers look at vast information. They find hidden patterns. Then, using those patterns, they make decisions or predictions. They teach themselves from experience, much like you get better at a game by playing. They don't just follow rules, they discover new ones. People have dreamed of intelligent tools forever. Ancient stories spoke of crafted beings coming to life. Later, thinkers like Alan Turing imagined how a thinking machine might work. For a long time, this was just a deep puzzle. But the prediction was clear. Our tools would one day learn alongside us. This vision, once a whisper, is now woven into our world. Think about learning to ride a bike. At first, you wobble and fall, but your brain, without conscious effort, makes tiny adjustments. You learn balance. You get better. A machine that teaches itself works similarly. It tries a task, sees success or failure, then adjusts its brain to do better. It learns from its own falls, growing smarter with each try. It's a quiet wonder, our human drive to create lead to things that grow beyond their first design. It makes you pause, considering what intelligence truly means. This isn't about fear, it's about our world gently changing, adding new understanding. This prediction, once a distant star, now shines softly, inviting contemplation. How a writer saw big companies taking over. Have you ever wondered what it would be like if just a few huge companies controlled almost everything we eat, wear, and use? Many years ago, a writer named H.G. Wells looked around and saw something coming. He saw a future where big companies, like massive shadows, would slowly cover everything. Back then, factories were growing, and businesses were getting bigger than ever. People were moving to cities to work for these growing industries. Wells watched this and felt a deep unease. He wasn't just thinking about stores getting bigger. He wondered if this growth would lead to a world where individual choices mattered less, and the choices of huge companies mattered more. It was a prediction not just of things, but of a feeling of being a small part of a very large machine. Imagine, you're picking out a new shirt or a snack at the store. You might think you have tons of choices, but here's the thing. Often, many of those different brands are actually owned by just one or two massive parent companies. It's like a big old tree in a forest that grows so tall and wide. Its branches spread everywhere and cover all the smaller plants below. The little plants are still there, but they live in its shade, growing under its influence. Wells wasn't just predicting big stores. He was predicting a shift in power. He felt that our daily lives, our options, and even our thoughts could be shaped by distant, powerful hands. He saw a future where the heart of creativity and individuality might struggle to beat when faced with such immense, organized power. It makes you pause and think about the quiet, giant forces always at work, gently pushing and pulling the world we wake up to each day. The prediction of knowing your genes. Have you ever looked in the mirror and seen a little bit of your mum or grandparent, or wondered why you're good at one thing, while your friend excels at another? For a long time, people just noticed these things. Traits seemed to pass down through families, like a secret whisper. They might talk about bloodlines or destiny, but they didn't really know how it worked. It was a beautiful mystery, a puzzle without an answer. But imagine predicting a day when we could read the instruction manual for a human being, a day when we could look at the tiny code inside every cell of our bodies, our genes, and understand what they say. This isn't science fiction anymore. We've learned to read that code. Think of it like a vast ancient library hidden deep inside you. Every page, every sentence, is a small instruction. This book tells your body how to grow, what color your eyes will be, and even gives hints about your health. Here's the thing, knowing your genes is like having a map. It shows you some of the paths you might take, where strengths and challenges could lie. For example, if your family has a history of a certain health condition, your genes might give you an early head. It doesn't mean it will happen, but it gives you information. It's like knowing there might be a steep hill on your journey. You can prepare for it, even find a different way. This knowledge connects us to a story far older than ourselves. It tells us we carry echoes of everyone who came before us, and we pass on whispers to those who will come after. It's a quiet truth about who we are, a blend of countless lives woven into our very being. And while our genes offer incredible insight, they don't define our whole story. They are a starting point, a foundation. What we build on top of that, our choices, the love we share. That's where our truly unique story begins. It reminds us that while we are connected to the past, our future is still ours to write, guided by wisdom, but shaped by heart. When people thought we'd grow food in labs, have you ever looked at a perfectly ripe strawberry or a slice of warm bread and wondered if we could just create it, not from a plant, but from science, in a clean, bright lab? For a long time, many people thought this would be our future. They imagined a world where farms were obsolete, and all our meals came from bubbling beakers and sterile tubes. It was a prediction born from a hopeful, perhaps a little naive, belief in what science could do. This idea really took hold. When we started understanding tiny particles and the building blocks of life, people saw incredible leaps in medicine and technology, and it felt like anything was possible. They thought, if we can split atoms and fly to the moon, why couldn't we just conjure up a meal, perfectly engineered, full of nutrients, and without any fuss? It was a dream of ultimate control, a way to solve hunger and escape the messy reality of dirt and weather. Imagine if your favorite snack could be created from scratch, never going bad, always tasting the same. It seemed like a perfect solution to a very complex problem. But here's the thing about perfection. Sometimes, what we gain in efficiency, we lose in soul. Think about your grandmother's cookies compared to something bought from a factory that's always exactly the same. The factory cookie is consistent, sure, but does it carry the same warmth, the same memory, the same unexpected little flaws that make it unique? The predicted future of lab-grown food was clean, predictable, perhaps even efficient, but it missed the quiet magic of a seed pushing through soil, the patient waiting for the sun and rain, the simple joy of harvest. It overlooked the deep connection we have to the earth, the feeling of tending to something living. Our imagination can take us far, but sometimes the deepest wisdom is in knowing what we cannot, or should not, try to replicate. And maybe the best meals are still those touched by the sun, the soil, and a little bit of human care. The idea of ads just for you. Have you ever felt like a website somehow knew what you were thinking? Like it magically guessed what you wanted to buy, or watch, or learn? This feeling, this idea of things being chosen just for us, wasn't always a reality. But long ago, some people imagined a future where advertisements weren't just random noise. They pictured a world where ads were personal, tailored, as if a digital friend understood your every wish. For centuries, ads were broad, a poster for everyone, a newspaper ad for anyone who read it. But in the 19th century, writers like Edward Bellamy, in his book Looking Backward, started hinting at something different. He didn't predict targeted ads exactly, but he imagined a society so organized, so efficient, that it could almost anticipate needs. Later, in the mid-20th century, scientists and thinkers began to truly dream of machines that could learn about us, not just what we bought, but why we bought it. They started thinking about patterns, about the quiet clues we leave behind as we move through the world. Here's how it works. Imagine you love science fiction. You talk about it with friends. You search for new books online. A regular ad for a car might pop up for everyone, but a targeted ad, it would show you the newest sci-fi movie trailer, or a book about space travel, or even a game where you explore alien worlds. It's like a really smart librarian who knows your favorite authors and always suggests the perfect next read, instead of just handing everyone the same bestseller. That's the difference. It's a little eerie, this foresight, this understanding that one day our digital whispers would become loud, clear signals. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, how much of us is truly knowable? And what does it mean when predictions about our inner desires, our future choices, quietly come true? It's a reflection on how deeply humans have always tried to understand each other, and how our tools eventually learned to do the same. How an old story predicted a huge flood. Have you ever wondered if the oldest stories, the ones passed down through countless generations, could actually hold a secret about the future? It seems strange, like magic, but sometimes ancient tales weren't just made-up adventures. Sometimes they were warnings. Take the idea of a huge, devastating flood. You hear about it in the story of Noah's Ark, right? But what's really amazing is that similar tales of a great flood exist in cultures all over the world. From ancient Mesopotamia, with the Epic of Gilgamesh, to indigenous peoples in North America, to stories from India and China. So, here's the thing. These stories weren't just random fantasies. Many ancient people lived near big rivers. These rivers brought life, but they also brought danger. Sometimes, the rains were just too much, or ice dams broke, and the rivers would swell, overflowing their banks and covering everything. Imagine a flood so vast it wiped out whole villages, changed the landscape forever. For the survivors, that memory would be carved deep into their minds. They wouldn't have weather satellites or scientific models. Instead, they told stories. They said, "Remember the time the water rose. Listen to this tale, so you know what can happen." It's kind of like how we know a storm is coming. We see dark clouds gathering, the wind picks up, the air feels heavy. We don't need a weather app to predict rain. We've seen it happen before. We remember the signs. These old flood stories are like that, but on a much grander scale. They were observations, passed down, a way for people to say, look at the patterns. If the river acts this way, if the rains are that heavy, a great flood will come again. And that's why it matters. These stories aren't just myths from long ago. They show us how humans, even without science as we know it, tried to understand their world. They used shared memory to see future possibilities. It teaches us that listening to the wisdom of the past isn't just about history. It's about learning what might come next, and maybe, just maybe, how to prepare. It's a quiet reminder that the world holds powerful forces, and sometimes, the best way to understand tomorrow is to truly remember yesterday. The prediction of going to space for fun. Have you ever looked up at the night sky, maybe on a clear night, and wondered what it would be like to just float among the stars? Not as a scientist on a mission, but simply as a visitor. For a long time, the idea of going to space was only for astronauts, brave people facing great danger to explore the unknown. But some predicted a future where space wouldn't just be for work or discovery. They imagined we'd go there for fun. Here's the thing. This wasn't just a silly daydream. It was a real prediction that humans would eventually turn space into a destination, a place you could visit just to experience the incredible view and the feeling of weightlessness. Think about it like this. A little over 100 years ago, flying in an airplane was a crazy, dangerous, and very rare thing. Most people never imagined they'd casually fly across the country for vacation. It seemed impossible, but someone dreamed it, someone worked on it, and now, it's totally normal. The prediction about space travel was similar. People believed that our deep human desire for wonder and exploration would push us to make space accessible to everyone, not just a select few. It's about that feeling you get when you see something so beautiful it takes your breath away, like a majestic mountain range or the ocean stretching out forever. Imagine that feeling, but amplified by seeing our entire planet from above, a tiny blue marble hanging in the vast, silent darkness. This idea, that we'd reach for the stars just for the sheer joy of it, speaks to a powerful part of who we are. It shows our endless curiosity and our ability to turn the most fantastic dreams into reality. And today, we see it beginning to happen. Private companies are making space tourism a real option. People are paying to feel that special awe, to see Earth as only a handful of humans ever have. And that's why it matters. It reminds us that the dreams we hold deeply, the impossible wishes, can sometimes become the most profound and beautiful truths of our future. When scientists predicted new elements we hadn't found, have you ever felt like you just knew something was missing, even before you could see it? Like an empty space on a shelf, hinting at the book that should be there. That's a little like what brilliant scientists did with elements. They looked at the known universe, at all the building blocks of matter, and saw gaps. Not just empty spaces, but specific places where something had to be. Here's the thing. About 150 years ago, a Russian scientist named Dmitry Mendeleev created the periodic table. It was like a grand map of all the elements. But as he laid out the map, he noticed something amazing. There were empty spots. He didn't just leave them blank. He bravely predicted what those missing elements would be like. He described their weight, how they would react, even their color. He had never seen these elements. No one had, but he trusted the pattern, the deep order he saw in nature. It was like seeing a partial melody and knowing exactly what notes would come next. Imagine you're putting together a huge jigsaw puzzle of the world. You've got most of Europe and Asia, but there's a distinct continent-shaped hole where Australia should be. You haven't seen the Australia piece yet, but you know its general size and where it fits, because the surrounding pieces tell you. That's how these scientists worked, but with the fundamental stuff of the universe. And what happened? Years later, those elements were found. Gallium, scandium, germanium. They fit perfectly into the spaces Mendeleev had left for them. Their properties were exactly as he had described. It wasn't magic. It was the power of deep understanding and a quiet faith in the universe's structure. It shows us that sometimes, knowledge isn't just about what we observe, but about what we can figure out is meant to be there, waiting to be discovered. It's a beautiful thought, that the world holds secrets for us to find, and sometimes our minds can even glimpse them before our eyes do. The vision of a world connected by wires telegraph, asterisk, the vision of a world connected by wires telegraph, asterisk. Have you ever stopped to think how strange it would be if you couldn't instantly text a friend or look something up online? Imagine a time when news traveled only as fast as a horse could gallop or a ship could sail. It meant feeling truly separated by vast distances. But then, people began to dream of sending thoughts, not just letters, across those spaces, almost like magic. This dream was the telegraph. Here's how it works. It used electricity to send coded messages, little clicks and beeps, down a thin wire. Think of your brain sending signals to your hand to pick up a pencil. The telegraph was like extending that tiny, fast signal across hundreds of miles. Before this, a message from New York to California took weeks. Suddenly, it took minutes. This wasn't just a faster way to send notes. It completely changed how people understood distance itself. For the first time, people in different cities, even countries, could talk to each other almost instantly. A mother in London could hear about her child's health in India much sooner, bringing peace to an anxious heart. It connected families, helped businesses, and allowed governments to communicate in ways that felt impossible. It was a big step towards shrinking our world, making everyone feel a little closer. This invention wasn't just about speed. It was about the deep human need for connection, bridging the empty spaces between us. It showed us we could overcome physical barriers with human brilliance and a spark of electricity. And that's why it matters. It reminds us of our constant need to reach out, to share, and to feel less alone in the world, a need that still drives all our technology today. How a novel described future spacesuits. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to breathe in a place with no air? To step onto a world where the sky is just endless black? It's a powerful thought, right? For a long time, people dreamed of going to space, but it wasn't just about reaching the stars. It was about surviving there. Long before we ever launched a rocket, writers imagined the special clothes astronauts would need. These weren't just costumes. They were life support systems, made to keep people safe in the most dangerous place imaginable. Think about deep-sea divers. They wear special suits to handle the crushing pressure and icy water. Now, imagine space, but much, much worse. It's a vacuum, no air, no pressure, just freezing cold and harmful radiation. Early science fiction writers, like Konstantin Tsiolkovsky in the early 1900s, actually described ether suits. He pictured them as airtight, with helmets and tanks for breathing. He wasn't just guessing wildly. He thought hard about the real problems of space and tried to invent a solution on paper. This wasn't just telling a story, it was a kind of creative problem solving. It was a way to prepare our minds for future challenges, long before the technology even existed. It shows how powerful imagination can be, not just for fun, but for actual progress. It's a bit like when you design armor for your character in a video game. You think about what protection they need for different dangers, fire, hits, maybe even breathing underwater. You're trying to guess the risks and build the right gear. These authors did the same thing for astronauts, but for a real and much bigger adventure. They were designing gear for the ultimate challenge, outer space. It's pretty amazing to think that before anyone left Earth, someone had already pictured exactly what they'd wear to survive. This isn't just about predicting a piece of clothing. It's about the human spirit's deep wish to explore, to overcome, and to protect itself, even in the scariest unknowns. It teaches us that dreaming big, with careful thought, can actually show the way for future inventions and discoveries. Our imagination isn't just a playground, it's a blueprint for tomorrow. The prediction of talking to smart speakers. Have you ever asked your smart speaker to play a song or check the weather? It feels so normal now, right? Like talking to a friend who just knows things. But here's the thing, for most of history, talking to a machine and getting an answer back was pure fantasy, a wild, magical dream, only found in old stories. Imagine someone from 100 years ago. They might have pictured flying cars, but speaking into a small box and hearing a voice respond, understanding your words, and giving a helpful answer, that would have seemed truly impossible. This wasn't just about sounds, it was about a real exchange, a kind of conversation. This dream is incredibly old. Humans have always wanted to give life to things that aren't alive. Ancient myths tell of statues that could speak. Philosophers even thought about artificial minds. This deep human wish for a machine that listens and talks back has always been part of our shared imagination. Think of it like reading a fantastic book. At first, it's just words, but as you read, a whole world comes alive. People in the past imagined this for intelligent machines. They dreamt of helpful, understanding friends. They looked past simple tools, picturing technology almost like a living helper. And now, here we are. We whisper commands, and our smart speakers respond. This isn't just about ease, it's about seeing human dreams truly come to life. It shows how powerful imagination is. Yesterday's quiet hopes are today's everyday wonders. It makes you wonder what impossible ideas we're imagining today, waiting to become real. When thinkers guessed the power hidden in atoms, have you ever stopped to really think about what everything is made of? Not just wood or plastic, but what those things are made of, down to the tiniest bit. For thousands of years, long before we had fancy microscopes or particle accelerators, some incredibly wise people started to wonder. They looked at the world and asked a simple, yet profound, question. If you kept breaking something down into smaller and smaller pieces, what would you eventually find? They imagined tiny invisible particles, so small you could never see them with your eyes. They called these particles atoms, from an old Greek word meaning uncountable. It was a guess, a deep philosophical thought, something they only reached through pure thinking. But here's the amazing part. These thinkers didn't just guess that atoms existed, they also had a feeling, a deep intuition, that these tiny, unseeable bits held immense, incredible power. Not a power you could light a city with, back then, but a silent potential force. Think about it like this. Imagine a tiny, tightly coiled spring, hidden inside a small toy. On the outside, it just looks like a normal toy, maybe a car or a figure. But inside, that spring is wound up, holding all the energy needed to make the toy jump or move with surprising speed. You can't see the spring's potential just by looking at the toy. It's hidden, waiting. Atoms are a bit like that coiled spring, but on a scale so tiny it's hard to even picture. They contain a kind of quiet, stored energy, waiting for the right moment to show itself. It's almost unbelievable that people, with only their minds and imaginations, could predict something so fundamental about our universe. They saw something in the abstract that science would only prove centuries later. It reminds us that sometimes the deepest truths are hidden, not just in the world around us, but also in the quiet, curious corners of our own thoughts. And that's why it matters to keep asking big questions. The idea of world peace and why it's hard. Have you ever stopped to wonder if everyone, everywhere, could just get along? No more fighting, no more arguments between countries, just peace. It sounds like a dream, right? A beautiful one. This idea of a world without war, where people live together in harmony, is what we call world peace. It's a wish many have held onto for thousands of years. It means treating others with respect, even if they are different from us, and finding ways to solve problems without anger or violence. Think about it. Even ancient thinkers, long before your grandparents were born, imagined this kind of world. Philosophers from different cultures, people like Confucius in China, or early Greek thinkers, wrote about what a truly peaceful society might look like. They believed if people understood each other better, if they shared common goals, then peace was possible. It's not a new idea. It's an old hope that keeps showing up, generation after generation. But here's the thing. Achieving it is incredibly hard. Imagine trying to get everyone in your entire school to agree on one thing, every single day, without any disagreements. Someone wants soccer, another wants to read, someone else just wants quiet. Now, multiply that by billions of people, with different languages, beliefs, and ideas about what's fair. It's like trying to perfectly align 1,000 different magnets, all pushing and pulling. Each country, each group, has its own history, its worries, its own idea of what matters. So, while the dream of world peace shines brightly, the path there is full of twists and turns. It reminds us that understanding each other, truly listening, is not just a nice idea, but a powerful, necessary step. Maybe peace isn't one big sudden event. It's millions of small moments, starting with how we treat the person next to us. It's a journey, not a final stop, one that asks for patience and a deep, true belief in kindness. How one historian saw empires crumble. Have you ever watched an old tree? It grows tall and mighty, but even the oldest trees eventually change. Their leaves turn, branches break, and one day they return to the earth. This idea isn't just for nature, it's also for human societies, for the biggest empires. A long time ago, a brilliant historian named Ibn Khaldun looked at the world. He didn't just see battles and kings, he saw patterns. Here's what he found. Empires, like people, seemed to have a life cycle. They were born, grew strong, reached their peak, and then slowly faded. This cycle kept repeating, across different cultures and centuries. He noticed that new groups often started with a powerful drive, a strong purpose. Think of a new school club. Everyone is excited, working together to get things going. They have a common goal and are willing to sacrifice. This makes them powerful. But as generations passed, things changed. People got used to comfort. The need to struggle, to innovate, it slowly faded. Shared bonds weakened. Here's the thing. It's like a championship sports team. When they start, everyone works hard. They practice daily, push each other, fight for every win. They achieve great things. But if they win too often, if they stop feeling the hunger, if they just expect success, then cracks appear. That powerful, unifying spirit disappears. The edges get soft. Ibn Khaldun saw this happen to entire nations. The strong, uniting spirit that built them slowly gave way to luxury and division. It wasn't a sudden collapse. Often, it was more like a slow, quiet fading, a gradual loss of what made them special. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What keeps things strong? And what happens when that strength quietly slips away? It's a gentle reminder that even the biggest, most powerful things are always in motion, always changing, always part of a natural rhythm. The prediction of women leading nations. Have you ever stopped to think how much things change, sometimes in ways people long ago couldn't even dream of? Imagine looking back hundreds of years. History often showed kings, emperors, or presidents, almost always men, leading countries. The idea of a woman holding such power, making decisions for an entire nation, seemed like a fantasy to many. But here's the thing. Some people, a long time ago, actually predicted it. They saw a future where women would step onto the world stage, not just as advisors, but as the chosen leaders of their people. For a very long time, society had a firm idea of who was supposed to lead. This wasn't just a casual thought. It was deeply woven into how people viewed power and strength. Leading a country was seen almost always as a man's job, but as generations passed, whispers turned into hopes, and hopes into demands for equality. People began to understand that leadership isn't about physical strength or gender. It's about wisdom, courage, and the ability to inspire a nation. Think about a puzzle you're solving. For a while, maybe you only tried fitting the blue pieces, because that's how you always started. But then someone suggests, why not try the red ones? Suddenly, the whole picture starts to come together in a new way. That's a bit like what happened with women leaders. Once we opened our minds to all the pieces, to the idea that any brilliant mind, regardless of gender, could guide a nation, the world began to look very different. And here we are today. We see women serving as presidents and prime ministers, making history, shaping our future. It's a quiet testament to the human spirit, how we can evolve and challenge old ideas. Predictions, once seemingly impossible, now blossom into reality. This reminds us that a distant dream today might just be tomorrow's everyday truth, waiting for our collective belief. Progress isn't just about inventions. It's about changing our hearts and minds to see the full potential in everyone. When writers dreamed of moving instantly, have you ever closed your eyes and wished you could instantly be somewhere else? Perhaps far away, visiting a beloved grandparent, or just across town at a friend's house. This powerful desire to defy distance has been a central dream for people across history. For centuries, writers, poets, and thinkers imagined a world where you could simply vanish from one spot and reappear in another, in the blink of an eye. This incredible idea, often called teleportation, isn't new. Imagine early humans, limited by how fast they could move. Stories emerged. Ancient myths spoke of gods instantly traveling across vast heavens or between magical realms. In old folk tales, heroes used magical carpets or enchanted shoes to cover enormous distances. Later, before modern travel, writers like H.G. Wells held on to this dream. They saw how long and dangerous travel was, and they yearned for a different way, a way to bypass the tiring journey itself. It wasn't just about speed, it was about changing how we experience the world and connect. Think about how you feel when you're stuck waiting for a bus, or when you miss someone who lives far away. That quiet longing for instant connection, for effortless travel, truly fuels this dream. It's a bit like when you make a video call to a friend across the country. Even though your image and voice travel complex routes, it feels almost instant, like they're right there, close to you. That's a real-world glimpse into our deep wish for everything to be right here, right now, without the wait. This enduring fantasy of moving instantly tells us something profound about what it means to be human. We yearn to connect, to explore, and to make the most of our time. Even though true teleportation remains a dream, this powerful wish reminds us to deeply appreciate every journey we do take, and every precious moment we share, making even long distances feel less lonely and more meaningful. The idea of cities that are super smart. Have you ever wondered if a whole city could almost think? Like, if the buildings, roads, and systems all worked together, not just by chance, but on purpose, like a living thing. It's a powerful idea, isn't it? This concept, often called a smart city, is about using clever technology to make urban life better for everyone. Imagine a city that understands what's happening, senses our needs, and adjusts itself to help us. People have dreamed of perfect cities for a long time. Think about the ancient Greek philosophers. They imagined ideal societies, places where everything had a purpose, where life was orderly and fair. They saw cities as more than buildings. They saw them as reflections of human dreams and hopes. Fast forward to now, and we're seeing some of those old dreams start to take shape with technology. It's a modern twist on an ancient wish for a better place to live. Here's an example. Think of your own body. Your brain constantly takes in information from your eyes, ears, and skin. It tells your heart to beat, your lungs to breathe, and your legs to move. A super smart city would be a bit like that. Sensors are its eyes and ears, collecting data on traffic, air quality, or energy use. And a central system, its brain, uses that information to adjust things. Maybe it changes traffic light timings to ease congestion, or turns down streetlights when no one is around, saving energy. It's all about creating a smoother, more helpful environment. It makes you think, doesn't it? This isn't just about cool gadgets or fancy screens. It's about building places that are more in tune with us, the people who live there. It's about creating a future where our homes and streets don't just exist, but actively contribute to our well-being. And that's why it matters. It brings a quiet kind of hope, a gentle whisper that perhaps, with all our cleverness, we can build spaces that truly care for us. How old myths foreshadowed huge earthquakes. Have you ever wondered what it felt like for people thousands of years ago, when the ground beneath them began to tremble and roar? Imagine living without scientific explanations, when violent shaking could rip apart your village. For ancient communities, these terrifying shifts were deep, frightening mysteries. But here's the thing. Many old myths from cultures worldwide seem to hold echoes of massive earthquakes. It's almost like the memory of these earth-shaking events was carefully woven into their most important tales. Think about it. How do you explain a town swallowed by the earth, or a giant wave after the ground shook? They couldn't just look up a scientific report. Instead, they told stories. These weren't just made-up tales for fun. They were their way of trying to understand and remember truly terrifying natural disasters. People passed down tales of monstrous serpents or enormous gods stirring beneath the world, causing the land to rumble and tear open. In Japan, there was the myth of Namazu, a giant catfish whose thrashing tail caused earthquakes. Some Native American traditions spoke of great bears moving deep underground, making the earth tremble. These weren't guesses. They were likely ancient oral records, shared for generations, of powerful seismic events that deeply impacted their ancestors. It's a bit like when you experience something startling, and the memory makes you extra careful next time. Or when you see a small crack in a wall, and you know something bigger is shifting underneath. Ancient people didn't have tools to predict an earthquake, but they remembered the overwhelming signs and the destruction. They saw how the land changed, the sudden floods, the immense power unleashed. So, they put these powerful memories into myths. These stories became a kind of warning, a lesson whispered across centuries. They were their history books and warnings, helping them make sense of a world that felt alive and incredibly powerful. These deeply human stories remind us that humans have always sought to understand our planet's profound forces. The Earth holds ancient memories, and through these myths, perhaps a part of us connects with those echoes from the past, reminding us of our journey on this ever-changing world. The prediction of instant language translation. Have you ever felt lost, unable to understand what someone was saying? Imagine visiting a new country, where every word is a beautiful, confusing sound. For hundreds of years, people dreamed of a world where language wasn't a wall, but a clear path. This hope was the prediction of instant language translation, that it meant you could speak your language, and someone else, speaking a different one, would instantly hear you in theirs. Their reply, you'd understand it just as is. Think how your brain takes ideas and turns them into words. This technology just translates those words into different ones, so the meaning travels without getting lost. It's about the message, not just the sound. Ancient thinkers felt the pain of language barriers. They longed for a time when talking wouldn't be a puzzle. Old stories, like the Tower of Babel, show how deeply this separation affected people. They hoped for a way to share thoughts and feelings directly, without years of study or big dictionaries. Think about using a translation app on your phone now. Maybe for a foreign movie or a message from a new friend. It feels like magic, right? But imagine that happening live, in every conversation, without a pause. It's like having a universal translator in your mind, making every conversation possible. This prediction wasn't just about making things easy. It was about making deep connections. It was about truly seeing others, without misunderstanding. And here's the powerful thing. This isn't just a clever device. It's about building bridges between us all. It helps us feel our shared humanity, that we're all part of one big story. When we understand each other's words, we can better understand each other's hearts. It reminds us that deep down, we often speak the same language of hopes and dreams. When people thought we'd cure many sicknesses, have you ever imagined a world where no one ever gets sick? A place where every cough, every fever, every illness has a simple fix, ready and waiting. For a long time, humanity held onto this bright, hopeful vision. People truly believed that with enough science, enough smart doctors, we would eventually conquer almost every sickness. It was a beautiful, comforting dream. The idea that future generations, maybe even your grandparents, would live mostly free from the pain and fear of disease. Think about the middle of the last century. Things were changing fast in medicine. We discovered penicillin, an amazing drug that suddenly cured infections that used to kill thousands. Vaccines started to wipe out terrible diseases like polio and smallpox. It felt like humanity was on a winning streak. Each new breakthrough made people feel like we were getting closer to that ultimate goal, a world without sickness. It was easy to believe that if we just kept pushing, kept working, all the other illnesses would fall away too. The future looked so clear, so healthy. It's a bit like when you're playing a complex video game and you beat a really tough boss. You feel awesome, right? You'd think, okay, the rest of this game will be easy now. You've gotten past the hardest part, so surely the path ahead is clear. But then, a new level brings totally new challenges, different enemies, and puzzles you never expected. That's kind of how it went with our fight against sickness. We won some huge battles, and that felt amazing. But the human body, and the world around us, are much more intricate than we first understood. Here's the thing, while we did cure so many incredible things, and saved countless lives, new challenges always appear. New viruses, new ways our bodies can struggle. It showed us that medicine isn't just about finding one big answer for everything. Instead, it's a never-ending journey of discovery, effort, and care. The dream of a completely sickness-free world still inspires us, but now we know it's a patient, ongoing effort, and that makes the progress we do achieve even more profound, even more precious. We keep learning, keep trying, not just to fix things, but to understand the amazing, complicated gift that is life itself. The vision of living on other planets. Have you ever looked up at the stars on a clear night and felt a deep, quiet wonder? It's a feeling almost everyone shares, a soft pull toward the vast unknown. For centuries, people have gazed at that endless dark and dreamed, not just of visiting, but of actually living out there, making a true home among those distant, glittering lights. The idea of making a home on another planet isn't just a science fiction plot anymore. Here's the thing, it's a very old human prediction, a hope whispered through countless generations, one that still lights up our imagination today. Think about it. We've always been explorers, haven't we? From the first people who ventured beyond their familiar village to discover new lands, to sailors crossing vast oceans, we are wired with this deep curiosity, this burning desire for more. This dream of living on Mars, or even further, taps into that same profound human need. It's like when a family outgrows their house, or when a beloved town becomes too crowded, pushing people to imagine new places, new possibilities for growth and fresh starts. This isn't just about escaping Earth, but about finding new spaces to thrive, to innovate, and perhaps even to ensure our long-term survival as a species. It's a powerful, hopeful vision. It's a huge, awe-inspiring idea, right? Moving to another planet is like imagining you have to pack up everything you know, all your memories and hopes for the future, and then rebuild from scratch in a place utterly unlike home. It's a bit like a tiny seed, carried by the wind to a brand new patch of soil, hoping it can take root and blossom there, against all odds. This vision tells us something so important about being human. We never truly stop looking forward. We always seek that next frontier, that next breathtaking challenge. It reminds us of our amazing ability to adapt, to dream beyond what seems possible, and to truly believe in a future that feels like a fantasy, but might just come true. And that's why this ancient prediction matters so deeply. It shows the enduring power of human hope, stretching far beyond our own beautiful, blue world. How a book showed us police using predictions. Have you ever wondered if someone could know what you were going to do before you even did it? What if the police knew you would break a rule, even if you hadn't yet? It sounds like science fiction, right? But a famous short story, later a movie called Minority Report, explored this idea. It showed a future where special police units predicted crimes. They used people with unique abilities to see into the future, catching criminals before they even acted. Imagine being accused, not for what you did, but for what someone predicted you would do. That's a heavy thought. Here's the thing. This story wasn't just exciting. It made us think deeply about free will. If your future actions are already known, do you truly have a choice? Or is everything decided for you, like a script? This question has puzzled thinkers for thousands of years. From ancient Greek philosophers asking if fate controlled everything, to modern scientists studying how our brains make decisions, predicting human behavior has always been a powerful, sometimes scary, thought. It touches on our deepest sense of being people who make choices. Imagine you're walking, about to trip over a loose shoelace. You almost fall, but then you catch yourself. In the world of Minority Report, you might have been stopped for almost falling because it was predicted you would fall, but you didn't fall. You made a choice, even if it was a quick reaction, to balance yourself. This makes us ask, can we truly be judged for something that hasn't actually happened yet? Even if there's a strong prediction, it feels unfair, doesn't it? The deep emotional pull of this story comes from the feeling of losing your power to choose. It whispers a fear many share, the fear of being misunderstood, or worse, judged for something we haven't done. It makes you wonder about the preciousness of each day, and how our choices in this very moment shape who we are. Our own decisions are what truly write our story, not some predetermined script. The prediction of online friends and groups. Have you ever stopped to think about how easily you can connect with someone who loves the same obscure video game as you, even if they live on the other side of the world? Or maybe you've joined an online group for artists, sharing your drawings and getting feedback from people you've never met in person. It feels so normal now, doesn't it? But here's the thing. This idea of finding friends and building communities purely through screens was once just a wild dream, a prediction many years ago. Before the internet, people mostly connected with others who lived nearby in their town, their school, their neighborhood. Friendships grew from shared spaces, from bumping into each other every day. So, when thinkers started imagining a future where technology would shrink the world, they weren't just talking about faster travel. They pictured a time when our deepest interests, our unique passions, could be the main bridge to connection, not just where we happened to live. This wasn't about knowing everyone. It was about finding your people, no matter how far away they were. Imagine a kid who loved collecting rare stamps. Back then, they might have been the only one in their whole school with that hobby, feeling a bit alone. But now, that same kid can jump online and find thousands of other stamp collectors. They share tips, show off their finds, and feel like they truly belong. It's like discovering a secret clubhouse. But instead of being at the back of a garden, it's built from signals traveling through wires and airwaves. This prediction speaks to a deep human need, the wish to belong, to be understood, to share our innermost joys with others who truly get it. It tells us that even when we feel unique or different, there are always others out there, waiting to connect. And that's a beautiful thought, isn't it? That distance, which once kept us apart, now often brings us closer, knitting together hearts and minds across vast stretches of land and sea. When artists drew future tall buildings, have you ever stood at the base of a really tall building, craning your neck to see the top, and just felt a rush of wonder? You might think about the engineers, the construction workers, or the sheer amount of steel and glass. But what if I told you that long before any of those buildings were even planned, artists were already drawing them? Imagine a time when the tallest structure was maybe a church steeple, and suddenly, someone picks up a pencil and sketches a city of towers that stretch into the clouds. These artists weren't just doodling, they were dreaming, they were predicting, they were showing the world what could be, even when the technology didn't exist yet to make it happen. It's like they held a window open to the future, inviting us to peer through. This idea of drawing the future isn't new. For centuries, humans have looked at the sky and imagined reaching higher. These artists were the first to give that deep human longing a visual form. They took the whispers of ambition and turned them into powerful images. It was more than just art. It was a silent promise to tomorrow, a hope captured on paper. Think about it like this. Maybe you have an idea for a truly amazing tree, or a new kind of robot, or even just what your dream bedroom would look like. You might draw it out, making it real on paper first. That drawing becomes the first step. It shows you what you're working towards. It guides you. That's what these artists did for our cities. They drew our future skyscrapers before anyone knew how to build them. And then, over time, those drawings, those dreams, became blueprints. People saw what was possible. They were inspired to invent new materials, new techniques. What once seemed like pure fantasy slowly, piece by piece, became concrete and steel. It's a powerful, moving thought that our biggest, wildest dreams, when shared and held onto, can literally build the world around us. It reminds us that imagination isn't just for playing. It's a quiet force that shapes everything. It shows us that what we dream today can stand tall tomorrow. The idea of health, help for everyone. Have you ever felt really sick, or known a friend who was struggling with their health? It's a scary feeling, right? Now, imagine if getting help for that sickness depended entirely on how much money your family had. For a long, long time in history, that was the harsh reality for most people. If you were poor, serious illness often meant despair. But here's the thing. Some incredible minds, centuries ago, started to look at this unfairness and felt a deep ache inside. They began to wonder, couldn't society do better? They dared to dream of a world where health wasn't a luxury for the rich, but a right for everyone. These thinkers, from ancient philosophers to later social reformers, began to predict that a truly strong and fair society would be one where everyone, regardless of their background, had a real chance to be healthy. They saw that sickness didn't care about your social status. and neither should compassion. It's a bit like how your school nurse works. When you feel unwell, whether it's a scraped knee or a bad headache, you can go to her. She doesn't ask about your family's income before giving you a bandage or calling your parents. Her job is to help everyone who needs it. That simple, everyday act reflects a powerful idea that every person deserves care and a chance to feel better. It's about creating a safety net for all. That's prediction that societies would eventually strive for universal health help came from a place of deep human empathy. It was about understanding that we are all connected, and that a community is only as strong as its most vulnerable members. When we ensure everyone has a path to wellness, our whole world becomes a kinder, more hopeful place. It allows all of us to grow, to learn, and to contribute to the future together. How ancient stargazers tracked the planets. Have you ever stopped on a clear night, looked up, and felt how incredibly vast the sky is? Imagine living thousands of years ago, with no city lights, no phones, just the endless, sparkling dark above. For ancient people, that sky wasn't just pretty, it was a giant, mysterious clock, a calendar, and a map all in one. Here's the thing, they didn't have powerful telescopes or computers. They only had their eyes, their patience, and an amazing curiosity. So, how did they predict anything? They watched night after night, year after year, generation after generation. They saw that most stars stayed in place, like dots on a turning ceiling. But a few bright lights, the wanderers, which we call planets, slowly shifted their positions. They moved in looping, sometimes confusing paths across the fixed star patterns. It was like this. Imagine you have a favorite bus route. You don't have a schedule, but you watch it every day. You notice it usually comes around 7 a.m., then 8 a.m., then maybe a slightly later time the next day, or it seems to skip a stop sometimes. You write down when it shows up. Over months and years, you start to see a pattern. You can then guess when the bus will appear tomorrow. That's what the ancient stargazers did, but with planets. They carefully charted where Mars was tonight, then tomorrow, then next week. They built up records on clay tablets, papyrus scrolls, or carved into stone. This wasn't just a hobby, it was deeply emotional work. Their very survival often depended on understanding these patterns, knowing when to plant crops, when seasons would change, or if a significant celestial event meant something for their leaders. It was about finding order in what felt like a chaotic world, finding comfort in the predictable return of a planet. They felt a deep connection to these distant lights, believing the heavens whispered secrets to those patient enough to listen. It makes you wonder what quiet truths we might still find if we just slowed down and truly looked. The prediction of learning just for you. Have you ever wished learning felt made just for you, like a path perfectly set for your unique steps? People have long dreamed of this, knowledge meeting each person exactly where they are. This isn't just about good teachers, it's a deeper idea, a prediction that learning itself would adapt, almost like it truly understands you. Think about ancient thinkers, like Plato in Greece. He saw education as key to finding your best place in life. He knew personal growth mattered. Later, wise minds wondered, what if learning wasn't just a lecture for everyone? What if it felt like a friend sharing insights, knowing your questions before you even asked? Here's the thing, this idea began as a quiet hope. Educators imagined your curiosity not being forced into one shape. Instead, it would grow in its own way. Imagine learning to skateboard. Everyone gets lessons, but your coach sees you struggle with balance. Your friend struggles with turning. A learning just for you idea means the teaching shifts. You get balance drills. Your friend gets turning tips. It's about knowing what you need. This prediction tells us something deep about the human spirit. It shows we always believed in each person's power. Our path to understanding isn't a race. It's a journey made just for us. It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? To think learning could one day feel less like work, more like discovery. A gentle unfolding of what's inside you. And that's why it matters. True learning connects deeply with who you are. When someone guessed we'd have flying motorbikes, have you ever looked at the traffic on the roads and wished you could just lift off, flying over it all? It's a common daydream, isn't it? The idea of a personal vehicle that soars through the air, like a motorbike with wings or jets, feels like something from a far-off movie. But here's the thing, people have been imagining such things for a very long time. Long before we had actual airplanes, some incredible minds pictured a world where everyday transport wasn't just on the ground. Think about it. Centuries ago, people looked at birds and dreamed of flight. They didn't have engines, or even a basic understanding of aerodynamics, but they had imagination, and that's a powerful tool. Writers like Jules Verne, in the 1800s, described submarines and journeys to the moon, things that seemed like pure fantasy then. Their flying motorbikes might have been airships or personal flying machines, but the core idea was the same: freedom from the ground. They weren't just guessing, they were wishing, and those wishes shaped the future. It's like when you're playing a video game and you imagine a new power-up or a cooler way to get around the map. You don't know how to code it, but you can see it in your mind. That vivid imagining is what pushes inventors. Maybe our flying motorbikes haven't arrived exactly as pictured, but the dream led to helicopters, drones, and even concept cars that hover. The energy of that hopeful vision still pushes engineers today. So when we look back at these old predictions, it's not just about whether they got every detail right. It's about the human spirit. It's about the courage to dream wildly, to see beyond what's possible right now. Those dreams, even the ones that seem silly or far-fetched, plant the seeds for actual change. They remind us that the future isn't just something that happens to us. It's something we build, one hopeful, imaginative thought at a time. And that's why it matters. The act of dreaming itself changes the world. The vision of not using cash anymore. Have you ever really stopped to think about money? Not how much you have, but what it actually is. For most of us, especially now, it's not really a handful of coins or crumpled bills. It's a tap, a swipe, a few numbers on a screen. And here's the thing. This idea of not using physical cash was once just a wild guess about the future. Imagine walking into a store 100 years ago. Everything would involve paper money or heavy coins. Someone buying groceries, someone else paying for a new hat. Each transaction was a physical exchange. But even then, some smart people started to wonder. They saw a world where value could move without needing to be touched. They predicted a time when money would become invisible. Think about how fast things change. Long ago, people traded actual things, like shells or salt. Then came metal coins. Then paper money, which felt so modern. Each step took us further from a physical object that held value. And now, most of our money lives as data, as electrical signals. It's like a quiet hum behind everything we do. Here's an example. Think about a video game. You earn points, or digital gold, for doing quests. You can't hold those points in your hand, but they let you buy armor or special abilities for your character. Those digital points have real meaning within the game's world. Our actual world is getting pretty similar. Your bank balance isn't a pile of money sitting in a vault. It's a number, a promise, a digital record. And that's why it matters. It shows us something deep about human thought. Someone saw this future, even without knowing exactly how phones and computers would work. They simply understood that the idea of money could detach from its physical form. It's a quiet wonder, how predictions about such fundamental changes can echo through time and then softly, slowly, become our everyday truth. It reminds us that our world is always shifting, always becoming something new. How a story predicted using fingerprints to solve crimes. Imagine a quiet crime scene. Clues scattered, but no one saw a thing. How do you find the person responsible when they leave no obvious trace? For so long, this was a puzzle that baffled everyone. But then, almost like a secret whispered from the future, tiny patterns on our fingertips began to tell a story. Here's the thing. Long before police departments regularly used fingerprints to catch criminals, a famous writer imagined it. Mark Twain, the author who wrote Tom Sawyer, penned a novel called Pudd'nhead Wilson in 1894. In his story, fingerprints were the key. They solved a big, tangled case of mistaken identity and crime. It's truly amazing when you think about it. Back in Twain's time, the science of figuring out crime was still pretty new. Most people didn't really understand how incredibly unique our fingerprints truly are. Each of us carries a distinct map on our fingertip swirls and loops and arches that are ours and ours alone. Not even identical twins, who look so much alike, share the same ones. Your fingerprints are truly your own personal design. Think about it like this. When you leave your handprint on a steamy mirror, or maybe smudge a piece of glass, you're leaving a silent signature. It's a part of you, a unique map of your touch, that stays behind even after you walk away. And that's why it matters so much. Twain's story saw this potential, saw the invisible thread connecting a person to their actions. Long before it became a critical tool used in every courtroom, it shows us how powerful a writer's imagination can be. A simple story, woven with words, can sometimes peer into the future, lighting up paths that science will later follow and prove true. It reminds us that every single one of us is an original, marked by patterns so small, yet so utterly our own. We walk through the world, leaving quiet whispers of our presence, silent truths etched into the very tips of our fingers, waiting for someone to finally read them. The prediction of earthquakes seen from space. Have you ever wondered if we could see trouble coming, even from far away? Imagine looking down on our planet from space, seeing the entire Earth laid out. Could we spot signs of an earthquake before it happens? For ages, people watched the sky and listened to animals, hoping for a clue. This longing to know what mighty forces stir beneath us is a deep human desire. We want to feel safe, to understand our world. Here's the thing. Our planet is not a solid, unmoving ball. It's a living giant, always shifting. Earthquakes happen when huge pieces of its crust, called tectonic plates, slide past each other. They get stuck, then suddenly break free. Before that big shake, there are often tiny, almost invisible changes. Scientists are now using satellites, high above us, to spot these quiet warnings. These satellites can measure incredibly small movements in the Earth's surface, movements too tiny for us to feel. They can also detect subtle changes in the air above fault lines, or tiny shifts in the ground's temperature. Think of it like a rubber band slowly being stretched. You don't see it stretching at first, but if you could zoom in and measure precisely, you'd notice the tension building before it snaps. These satellites are like supersensitive eyes, watching the Earth's rubber bands stretch. This isn't about perfectly predicting when an earthquake will strike. That's still a mystery. But it's about listening to the Earth's quiet whispers from thousands of miles away. It's a reminder of how vast and powerful our world is, and it shows how we are learning to be better listeners, using technology to understand its ancient rhythms. It makes you feel small, but also part of something much bigger, trying to hear the silent stories of the ground beneath us. When old texts spoke of power that never runs out, have you ever wondered if some things just never truly fade away? Like, completely. We build machines that run out of fuel, and batteries eventually die. But imagine a kind of power that isn't about engines or electricity. It's a power that ancient people seemed to understand, a force they believed could last forever. Across history, in old books, dusty scrolls, and carvings on stone, people talked about this lasting power. They weren't talking about a new kind of energy source for their homes. Instead, they wrote down thoughts about justice, truth, courage, or the universe itself. And here's the thing, we still read those words today. Think about philosophers from ancient Greece, or wise storytellers from lands far away. They felt certain ideas had a strength that would not disappear with time. It was almost like they predicted these ideas would keep shining, long after they were gone. This power is quiet, but incredibly strong. It's the power of an idea that grabs hearts across hundreds of years, the power of a story that teaches the same lesson, no matter how many generations pass. It's like how a really good song from your grandparents' time can still make you feel something deep inside. The melody is old, the singers might be long gone, but the feeling it gives you, that just keeps going. Or how the simple rule of treat others how you want to be treated still makes perfect sense. Even though people have been saying it for thousands of years, it's a prediction about human nature that keeps proving itself true. These old texts, sometimes fragile and worn, whisper to us. They remind us that some truths don't wear out. They actually predicted something amazing, that the best parts of being human, our kindness, our search for meaning, our deepest questions, these are the powers that never truly run out. They just keep echoing, waiting for us to listen again, connecting us to everyone who ever lived.